Good evening and welcome to the February 23rd pre-meeting. Are there any questions on this evening's agenda? All right, then we'll move to City Council reports. Councilor Izadi, did you want to kick off?
I'm good, thanks.
All right.
For here, yeah, it was a bit of a busy 2 weeks since we've last seen each other. I attended the North Metro Arts Alliance. That's one of my board assignments. We did budget approval and talked a lot about some cool projects that they're taking on, specifically from the Westminster side for the 251-51-15. I'm learning is what we're saying for the 250th celebration of, you know, the founding of our country, the founding of our state, and then the founding of our city. So some cool stuff to come about that. I'm excited to show off some things that I can bring back to the council that the board is doing. We had a successful Seafire fundraiser at Chicken and Pickle, and it was one of those, you know, we get some proceeds, a percentage of the proceeds made off of anyone who purchases a brunch that day, and the line was like out the door for a brunch that day. So it was a really great turnout for the community. So thanks to the community who came for that. I got a chance to meet with our staff liaison for the Environmental Advisory Board as well to kind of get a brief update. I have my next meeting later this week, so it was in preparation kind of for that meeting and for my role moving forward, which has been super helpful. So I'm thankful for staff for putting that together so that I can kind of show up in this new capacity for the boards. And I'll have some other stuff, but I'll mention on the dais.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Ireland?
So I attended the AdCog meeting. That's been a bit ago, but we had to have a quorum because they've got a new chairperson, which is Justin Martinez, who's the Thornton City Councilor, and the vice chair is Mayor Douglas from Commerce City. They talked about identifying all 10,000 bus stops throughout the metro area. I guess they don't know where they all are.
Who's they?
Adam's Cog. Anyway, I don't know if RTD knows where they all are. They don't know who they belong to, who maintains them. They would like to upgrade them. We talk about ADA accessibility. They want to assess, because some of them are too small to do some of the things that they want to do. So they have to assess which ones are too small. They have to have at least 75 people ride them every day to do certain upgrades. So I will tell you what I learned when they come back with that. I met with Lisa Jensen Thompson about child care initiatives in Adams County. They don't know where the money will come from to give tax rebates on property taxes, but it has to be people that are licensed, because you can have 4 children in your home, 2 of your own, 2 of someone else's, without being licensed. And so I think we'd open a whole can of worms if they're not licensed and everyone starts doing childcare at their house to get tax rebates. I did talk to her about liability, because that's one of the problems that childcare facilities have, is that the liability is so huge. And the state has partnered with True North for liability insurance. So people that are interested in doing childcare, opening up a childcare facility, I recommend they go to True North for their insurance. I guess they get a better rate. So I did learn that. I went to CML. We went through all the bills that they were concerned about. Most of the bills have to do with stepping on home rule that they're against. They also think that the state is giving them a lot of unfunded mandates that cities cannot afford to fulfill. So they're tired of all the unfunded mandates. And I also attended AC Rep this morning where we went over some bills. The two that we discussed a lot today that we made a position, one was to oppose non-employment educational opportunity background checks. I guess hospitals, they say have to have background checks for people that are just serving, and so do schools. And so they're concerned that if we don't use those security numbers like they've been using, that they won't be able to do those background checks. And I think children and hospitals do need to have safe, know that people are getting background checks. So we oppose that. And the other one that was they supported was county enforcement authority. That's so that they have authority in Adams County to find people who have not cleaned up their places. They have junk all over their places. This happens a lot in counties compared to our cities, so they're trying to clean that up. So there was a show of support for that bill. And I can list the others and send them in an email if you'd like. Okay? Thank you.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended as the alternate the Inclusivity Board a couple of weeks ago, and they had a crossover meeting, so I was there with Councilor Zadi, who was there for the Youth Advisory Council, and they had a crossover meeting and talk about collaboration between those boards and working together, and that was exciting. And you know, as new to these boards, I'm learning a lot and appreciate all the work that is being done on them. I attended as the alternate the Dr. Cog meeting where we had a presentation from the Urban Land Institute, and they have a program that they offer to city councils to really go in depth related to city planning, and it sounds like a wonderful program. So you know, it's something I would love to explore. They bring out the Legos. They talk about you know, really give city councils an opportunity to do planning hands-on in a modeled scenario, and then present to them as if you were someone proposing a development, so you can see what it's like to get questions and field questions. And I know the Metro mayors have done it, and many people who are on Dr. Krog have done it. Obviously, the Mayor Pro Tem does it for a profession, but I thought it was a fascinating opportunity for council to really learn that process hands-on, and they offer it to city councils, so it's something that I would love to explore. They also at Dr. Cog talked, had the turnover of, I think this is the last meeting for the current leadership, so they did a leadership selection process, and that was done internally. So it was primarily just going over who those new leaders of Dr. Cog are, and had the discussion around policy, including some of the state proposed policy for RTD, because there's a state proposed policy that's going to be coming forward related to changes to the RTD governance structure. And obviously, Dr. Cog's interaction with RTD is really tight, and so they were presenting those that to the group. And I did miss that night because I was at Dr. Cog, the Special Permanent Licensing Board, which I heard was a action-packed one. And but I did receive a report from the chair, Parker Brown, after the fact about that meeting. I got to see Councilor Barajas at the CML Information Day during my day job, but got to get some information about that and spoke with the representatives from CML about that work and some of the bills that Councilor Ireland spoke about. And finally, I attended the Uplands Open House over the weekend to see some of the new builds that are in place and look at some of the planning that has been done for the growth that's going to happen there.
Excellent, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Let's see. So I attended a couple of Front Range Passenger Rail meetings just as a board member. I would say one thing that is to note is, I think I've mentioned this to a couple of you already, is that they are looking at working with each community that's supposed to get a station and hopefully have support for the Front Range Passenger Rail for as they go into the potential for a ballot item. So discussions are going to be happening and have already happened with a number of the cities that have a station with those folks who've been hired to do some station area planning. So I know that something's been scheduled with staff. So I think that's coming soon to Westminster. I believe. I know, I'm like, was it, I thought I saw meeting, that's one of the meetings that was trying to be scheduled.
One of them, I think,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll check that for you.
And then I did also with the mayor attend a discussion that was held in Broomfield regarding a potential for a regional transportation authority. And this was brought by Councilor Ward in Broomfield, and a number of folks from Boulder, Commerce City, Lafayette, Broomfield, Superior,
Louisville, Boulder, yeah.
yeah, so they invited pretty much everybody in the sort of northern half of the region to just have a discussion about, well, what might it look like? There's a lot to flesh out, I'll say that, in terms of what could it be? What is it funding? And so we left there, I think there's just going to be some spade work completed by Councilor Ward. A lot of questions came up more than answers in terms of, again, what could this fund? And it would be supplemental, long story short, to RTD, to be able to either add service or provide our own more local service or intercity service. Yeah. And so, interesting idea. Not sure how that would, right? It could be a tax of some type. And again, that's up to the voters. And it's trying to find a solution for lack of that first and last mile / intra and intercity commuting. So yeah, interesting conversation. I suppose more to come in terms of detail and fleshing that out. So that was that. What else? Before just going through like my entire, I'll stop there. I know things happened this past week, but it's been a very busy few weeks. So.
It has. Okay, well then I'll pick up there where you left off, Mayor Pro Tem, with the RTA discussion. That was interesting, like you said. It sounds like, from what I understood at the meeting, everyone was interested in having at least one more conversation, and then from there would probably need a feasibility study, which would require participation from all of our cities and councils. And so at that point, we'd have our attorneys and city manager brought in to figure out what we could propose so that folks could weigh in and figure out from there what we do. And then I attended the RMMA kickoff for their transition to unleaded fuel this past week. I think that was Wednesday, I forget which day. That was really exciting. They had a lot of media there. There was a press release. They showed us, they did their first airplane, filled it up in front of us, and it was windy and cold, but it was fun. It was very exciting. And so I just want to mention that to the community. Jefferson County and the airport, they really emphasized the effort it took to speed up the timeline on this, to get that transition going right now, and their commitment to pushing for, environmental and public health and safety on that. So pretty grateful. I'm grateful to them for that. And then I believe this was mentioned, but attended the railway discussion with the chair of Front Range Passenger Rail. Mr. John Putnam came down to our city, which I'm really grateful for all of his time there, and to everyone from city staff that helped make that happen. Thank you for all that dedicated time. We did a quite in-depth shuttle ride throughout the downtown area just to explain the dollars invested into our new downtown development and the partnerships that we've grown, and the flourishing pedestrian traffic, and the mixed use retail and housing there, just really trying to convince our argument for why we wanted this stop where it is that we wanted. So one person at a time, right? We'll just convince them one person at a time. So that was interesting. This was exciting. I got an invitation to the Japanese emperor's birthday, so I just wanted to bring that out. I just wanted to say thank you to the Japanese consulate because they have repeatedly reached out for thing after thing over the last few months, and I just want to call that out to say thank you. It's been really exciting and interesting, and it makes you wonder how many other consulates are in Denver, and we don't know what they're up to. So I'm really grateful to the Japanese consulate for reaching out and involving us all. Attended the Mile High Flood District meeting this past week. That was very interesting. There's a whole lot going on there that, I'm going to start forwarding council notes because I feel like we should all know what's happening with our flood districts across the Front Range. They had some updated maps. Those that we discussed did not affect us here. They were more for the south area, and then we ended up approving a project with some TIP funding, and that was for South Denver. So no real updates for us, but that's been interesting learning all that they do. Had the G-Fiber kickoff, which was very exciting. So that's been a long time in the works. We've been working on that for a few years now. And so again, thank you to staff and the chamber. I think that really shows that, Westminster's investing here today, and we're really trying to ensure that we provide folks with the access that they need to live and work here, right? We are investing locally, and I just want residents to know, I've seen some of the emails come in about this disruption that's caused to their roads, and please continue to reach out. I met with the project team. They are being as responsive as possible, and so if you do have any issues or concerns, we want to get those fixed and amended as soon as possible. But really, that is good work to make sure that we all have access, to internet that's pretty unreliable right now in some areas. Did the interview, of course, with Denver 7 for Restaurant Week, which is exciting. That's kicking off in April. I forget which week.
No.
Anyway, 16. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, so that's exciting. Restaurant Week, first ever inaugural Westminster Restaurant Week. And that's exciting because, again, we are investing locally. We want folks to come out and dine and get an idea of what we have to offer here. We've had a lot of new restaurants open over the last couple of years, and this is a chance to try them out, And what's really nice about our offerings with that, there's a range of 5 different ticket options you can do, and the most affordable one starts at $15, so it's hard to say no to a Restaurant Week ticket at $15. So I'm really grateful to the team for making that happen. So that's really great for our families. And then I, too, attended a tour of some of the new Uplands homes that are now ready for showing and ready for purchasing with Brookfield Residential, and I saw Councilors Barajas and Johnson there, and that was interesting to see what they look like on the inside, and they were pretty elevated. So that was really nice. I was very impressed with them, with their standards, and they were really beautiful inside, and they were pretty big, actually, from what you'd imagine. And then I just wanted to bring up that, of course, the State of the City is tomorrow, so that's really exciting. I look forward to seeing all the folks from our businesses that are going to be there. And then that we have our strategic meeting this coming Saturday, and I'm sure this will be in your presentation, but I just want to call that out so that residents know that this is your last chance this week, to really reach out to council, send us your emails, send us your thoughts, because this is the biggest meeting of the year to really get an idea of what we're doing over the next year with our budget and where our priorities are. And do you have a presentation for us this evening?
I do for the dais, nothing for this room.
Okay. Are there any additional comments? Yes, Councilor
I'll
Island.
say one more thing about RMMA. I wish I could have come to that, by the way, but I was coming back from Utah on a very slick, terrible trip. Anyway, so we've had a couple emails, complaints. We hadn't had any complaints for a while, and one was from Carolyn Farman about joining the Northwest Mayors Commission's coalition and having the RMMA part of that. I don't know if we're interested in do that, but I just wanted to put that out there. Maybe we want to do that. It's the Mayor Superior that has started that, so I told her that I would bring it up. So.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. That did come up on one of the calls, and essentially the mayors on that call kind of took that back as information for the next call to take a vote on whether or not aviation is added to the Northwest Mayor's kind of agenda and scope of what they cover. Personally, I am for it. I hope that council would be for it, and we'll be talking about that at our next month's meeting, so I can bring that up again then and make sure that we all agree that that should be part of their scope of work. I have a feeling that, considering our position, we have pretty heavy involvement on that, and we've been heavily involved in that study they've been doing, so thank you for that update too. Appreciate that. Yes, it's been quite a last 2 weeks. And lastly, I got engaged, so that's exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. All right, well, thank you all, and that concludes our pre-meeting. We will be at the dais at 7 p.m. Thank you all so much. Good evening and welcome to the Westminster City Council meeting of February 23rd, 2026. Please stand and join us for the pledge. Thank you for joining us this evening. Please remember that our meetings are governed by the rules of decorum posted inside chamber doors. We ask all attendees to maintain a respectful environment. No disruptions, threats, or audible expressions of support or opposition are permitted. Signs and placards are prohibited, and all attendees must remain seated in designated areas. If you wish to speak during public comment, please sign up in the lobby. Sign up closes at 7:15 p.m. City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councillor Barajas.
Present.
Mayor Carmelia.
Present.
Councillor Azadi.
Here.
Councillor Hott.
Present.
Councillor Ireland.
Here.
Councillor Johnson.
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Here. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Councillor Azadi?
Sorry, it was still on. Move to approve the minutes, and it's not open, so one sec. I move to approve the minutes of the February 9, 2026 special city council meeting and the February 9, 2026 city council meeting as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second? Councillor Johnson?
Second.
Excellent. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to presentations. There are no presentations this evening, which brings us to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the public to address City Council on any issues or items pertaining to city business. During public comment, each speaker will have up to 3 minutes for their comments. Staff will follow up with questions and outstanding issues. There were no public hearings on tonight's agenda. City Clerk, would you please report the number of email and voicemail comments received and the number of individuals signed up to speak this evening, and then call our first speaker.
We had no emails, one voicemail that has been transcribed and attached to the packet, and our first live speaker is Jill File.
Council members. My name is Jill File, and this evening I'm representing residents of the Huntington Trails neighborhood regarding the need for a long overdue traffic signal at 144th Avenue and Huntington Trails Parkway. This is the only northern entrance into our community, and it is a shared access point for Huntington Trails, Lexington, and Quail Hill subdivisions. 126 residents signed a petition requesting the city reevaluate this intersection in 2026. In addition, 89 residents signed written comments with safety as the overwhelming concern. Residents report difficulty turning west during peak hours, increasing congestion, near misses, high accident risk, a rise in the number of people making U-turns since Carr Estates was completed, and mounting frustration after repeated outreach to the city, reaching back to 2016. The Huntington Trails subdivision was developed over 20 years ago. Since then, the 144th Avenue corridor has seen significant residential and commercial growth. The road has also expanded from 2 lanes to 4. Traffic volumes today are substantially higher, particularly with the addition of an Amazon warehouse, 3 hotels, 2 schools, a new subdivision, and 3 shopping centers, with close proximity to this intersection, and all nearby intersections have lights. We understand that a traffic study was conducted in September of 2024, and it did not meet signal warrant thresholds at that time. However, those findings do not reflect residents' lived experiences, and waiting until 2029 for another full evaluation, according to the Public Cities Engineer's email dated January 22nd, creates a concerning gap between projected data and actual use. We are respectfully asking the City Council to request that Public Works Department conduct a review in 2026 and give serious consideration to installing a traffic signal as soon as possible. This is not about convenience or aesthetics. It is about protecting families, pedestrians, teen drivers, cyclists, joggers, and commuters who rely on this entrance daily. When over 100 households sign a petition and 89 submit detailed written comments, we believe this represents a meaningful metric in and of itself. We value our partnership with the city and ask for a proactive attention to this matter before a preventable tragedy occurs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. The next speaker is William McCann.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Bill McCann, and I'm a long-term Westminster resident. Tonight, I will address comments made at the last council meeting by Councilor Hott regarding federal agents removing illegal aliens from our streets. Councilor Hott, you set up a straw man concerning the training of local police officers and federal immigration agents. Their trainings are not the same, and they are not meant to be the same. Police and agents serve different functions in law enforcement and thus are trained differently and should not replace one another. Federal agents are trained to enforce federal immigration law through investigative techniques, evidence collection, in collaboration with other agencies. That is their defined legal role. Referring to federal agents as untrained vigilantes that are murdering American citizens is inflammatory. They are not rogue actors, but sworn officers operating under federal authority. Allegations related to recent street conflicts involving protesters and federal agents should be investigated following due process, not declared as settled truth in a public meeting. You said that you are here to defend all Westminster residents, including those who are illegal aliens. Defending residents from federal law enforcement officers carrying out lawful duties raises serious concerns about the message you are sending to our residents. Is it your goal to nullify federal law in Westminster? Immigration enforcement prioritizes removal of those who present public safety risks, such as drug dealers, pedophiles, rapists, murderers, and gang members. I believe that all residents would expect these serious offenders to be removed from our community. Public safety depends on cooperation and clarity, not rhetoric that undermines confidence in law enforcement. When elected officials use language such as vigilantes or murderers without complete investigations, it escalates division and weakens public trust. Your words, all of you, can carry weight. They influence how residents perceive law enforcement and how agencies work together. Councilor Hott, in particular, I respectfully ask that you reconsider your language used when discussing federal officers. Disagreement over policy is legitimate, but accusations of criminal conduct without adjudication
your time is
go
up.
beyond policy disagreement.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lauren Chivetz.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and staff. My name is Lauren Shevitz, and I'm with Volker Development. My address is 2344 Spruce Street in Boulder. There are a few new council members here since the last time I was in attendance of a city council meeting, so I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. Volker is the developer of the proposed Blossom Commons senior housing community in downtown. As a refresher, the new community will provide 50 much-needed affordable homes for older adults aged 55 and older, earning a diversity of incomes. An update for you all on the project. We are just 1 month away from our financial closing and plan to break ground on April 1st. Thank you to all the city staff for their tireless efforts to get us through entitlements and permits. Construction will be completed in the summer of 2027, welcoming our new residents by the end of the year. Tonight on consent agenda, there are 2 items related to Blossom Commons. The first is the lease agreement for a commercial space at the property, and the second is an allocation of Westminster's federal home funds to the project via Adams County's Home Consortium. I want to thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to being under construction shortly. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. The next speaker is Radu Demian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Radu Demian. I'm a resident of Westminster. I've been in the Huntington Trails subdivision for 12 years, and I love it. First of all, I want to thank you for dedicating your time for our wonderful city. It's amazing. It's great to see the people that I voted for in person. That's awesome. I just wanted to reiterate what Jill mentioned in more detail. I actually have a little note, but over the years, I've experienced a lot more traffic on 144. When I moved there in 2014, we didn't have, the hospital wasn't finished. There was nothing south of 144. There was nothing on the other side of I-25. We have 3 new subdivisions north of Arbor Square. We have Dillon Point that's being built up. We have the neighborhood north of 144 right across from ours. And it's getting scary. And, our kids are growing up. My daughter just got her license last week, and I've been driving with her for a year, and she goes to school, to the high school, and it's scary. It's so scary. And there's 6 lines of traffic. People are crazy. It's a 45 miles an hour. I don't know if anyone goes 45. It's another street on the other side. Pecos keeps going up. And it's our only exit to the north. There's only one other exit to the east, and that has a light. And I would say Huron there's not as much traffic on Huron. So there's also the park at McKay Lake that's being finalized, and I saw a huge parking lot there. So we're probably going to get more visitors. And there's also a light there. And reading the comments, I think someone had a brilliant idea. Can we move that light further down, and then we can have people cross? I think it was for horses, or I don't see people crossing there once in a while, maybe. We don't want to impede traffic, but we want our kids to be safe, and us, it's super scary. So I would encourage you to drive through it. If in the morning it's almost impossible, and then you watch for the people coming from the west, and then you think you're ready, and then there's people coming from the east, and it's scary. So all we're asking is a reevaluation and a consideration for our safety. It's a lot of people, and there's been accidents there before. I don't think anyone died, but there have been accidents at that intersection. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Andre Shalapi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I really care about this city. I care about public safety, about truth, and about the Constitution. That is why I feel compelled to speak tonight. The public statement posted on the city's website regarding federal immigration enforcement actions does not reflect my views, and I know many residents feel the same. First, I want to commend Councilor Ireland for not supporting that statement. It takes courage to stand apart when emotions are high. I am deeply troubled by the rhetoric at the last meeting, particularly when Councillor Hott referred to federal immigration officers as, quote, untrained vigilantes that are murdering American citizens, end quote. That is an extraordinary inflammatory accusation. These are sworn federal law enforcement officers carrying out laws enacted by Congress. You cannot call someone a murderer on Monday and then call for a fair investigation on Tuesday. That is not due process. It is prejudgment. If wrongdoing did occur, let investigators determine that. That is how constitutional government works. I also strongly disagree with Mayor Carmelia's statement that cooperating with federal immigration authorities is, quote, against our current form of government, end quote. Colorado does place limits on how local agencies may assist federal immigration enforcement, but it does not prohibit cooperation. Immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility under our constitutional framework. We as citizens and you as elected officials do not get to pick and choose which federal laws passed by Congress we will follow. If we disagree with the law, there are lawful ways to change it: elections, legislation, and the courts. The deaths of Petty and Good were tragic. Every loss of life is tragic, but tragedy does not erase responsibility. These individuals were not peacefully protesting. They were actively interfering with lawful law enforcement operations. Interfering with officers executing their duties is not peaceful protest. It is breaking the law. When elected officials blur the line between peaceful protest and unlawful interference, people hear permission. That confusion increases confrontation, and confrontation increases risk to officers and residents alike. This month, we celebrate President's Day. Abraham Lincoln warned us that a house divided against itself cannot stand. If we are serious about constitutional government, we must be serious about the rule of law for everyone. I respectfully urge this council to amend its statement to clearly affirm the rule of law, uphold due process, distinguish between peaceful protest from illegal interference, and remove language that prejudges federal officers before the facts are known. Lead with truth, lead with the law, lead with the Constitution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jeremy Nuanez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the February 8th meeting, you thanked staff for their hard work on your ICE statement, praising how quickly it was produced. It's easy to produce a statement quickly if it is a direct copy, word from the Jefferson County leadership and passed on as an original work. Is Bruce Baker right? Is this council dishonest, lack morals and accountability, or will you find somebody accountable for this action? With that said, as I was leaving the last meeting, I realized you have no intention of engaging with opposing views. You dismiss them and move on with your own agendas. Your statement did nothing to solve the root issue. Rather than sending out a letter that seems to pick a fight with federal government, consider a more productive approach. We can all agree we do not want criminals in Westminster, and that illegal immigrants who follow the law, pay taxes, and assimilate are not the problem. Instead of a confrontational letter, why not help set up a path to citizenship and support integration? Community members with legal expertise, such as Jack Johnson, could support your cause and volunteer his time to help illegal immigrants get through this process. And for those with serious criminal records, murderers, rapists, or child traffickers, to name a few, we can all agree, I hope we can all agree, that we don't want these people in our city and that we would turn these people over to federal custody. This approach achieves the end goal without any unnecessary conflict. And finally, there are 7 of you on this city council for a reason. That should produce diverse viewpoints and independent thought, not a 6 or 7 vote moving in lockstep. Stop following political narratives and start thinking independently. Lead the city with independent judgment, not party talking points. Your responsibility is our residents, not to whatever national narrative happens to be trending this week. For any of these questions that I've asked, you guys all have my email. So please send me a response. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tom Lampo.
Hello to everybody in Westminster. Hello to you before me. I'm Tom Lampo. It's a privilege to stand before you in the city of Westminster. Hope all are doing well tonight. I'm here to lift up the city of Westminster in prayer. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, in Jesus' precious and holy name, we come before you tonight and ask that you be a part of Westminster. Psalm 150, verse 6 states, "Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord." You inhabit the praise of your people, so we give all honor and glory to your name. You are God, and there is no other before you. You are holy and worthy of our admiration. Your name is the highest. Your name is the greatest and stands above all others. All thrones and dominions, all powers and positions are under you. You are lifted high. The angels and all creation cry holy. You are forever worthy of all praise. Holy are you. Father, our state is experiencing a drought. Our high country needs snowpack for the spring runoff so our rivers and streams can deliver water to our farms and reservoirs. So we come before you tonight and ask that you would deliver cold weather and moisture to our mountains. And in Ephesians 3:20, your word states, "Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think." Nothing is too great for you to accomplish. Nothing is out of reach for you. You are our provider. We are asking you to provide the moisture for our mountains to fill our rivers and reservoirs. We know you are working to create a better tomorrow for all of us. Living in the moment can be difficult. Nothing seems normal. Everything seems out of place. Help us to slow ourselves down and rest in your peace and comfort. It states in 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, "All praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. We can rest in you. Help us find comfort in knowing you are working to make our lives better. You are our God, and we are your people. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. Have a nice night.
Thank you. That was our last speaker. Thank you, speakers. City Manager, do you have a report?
Mayor, thank you. I do have a report this evening. Next slide, please. By way of update, this is at the request of Councillor Barajas. I want to confirm that on Friday, 88th and Lowell intersection was reopened. So that construction was underway since November of last year, and the improvements were significant, and they were made to the water and wastewater lines in that whole neighborhood. The city will continue to work with the Uplands Development to repave portions of Lowell that were impacted by that heavy machinery that was working there. Next slide, please. Also, by way of update, this is a fun one. Our community naming snowplow contest was a big success, and joining the city's snowplow fleet this year, if we ever get snow, is Sled Zeppelin and Scoopy-Doo. So those were the two names advanced by our community and selected in a poll. So those names, as you can see, are now on those snowplow trucks. So when you see those plows out, you will recognize those two newest additions to our fleet. So I want to thank the community for submitting more than 150 names and casting nearly 1,000 votes for, that was our 4th annual contest, so we'll continue that moving forward. Next slide, please. For tonight's agenda, I have 2 slides. On consent tonight are 7 items, including 1 which is a second reading. We have 2 items of new business for you tonight. First is Councillor's Bill 5, that's amending the maximum size requirements for accessory dwelling units. And second is first reading of Councillor's Bill 6, and that's authorizing a supplemental appropriation and accepting grant funds from the Colorado Energy Office. Next slide, please. We do have 3 presentations in regular council tonight. The first is on housing updates and recommendations. The second is the introductory session of all of our departmental budget briefings for you coming over the next month and a half or so. So this is the 2026 department priorities by our Chief of Staff's office and our budget best practices presentation. So we'll actually do the budget best practices presentation first, and then we will begin with bringing each department head forward for you to give you an overview of their departments, and tonight is our first one, and that's the Chief of Staff's office. Next in the evening will be the end of the regular council meeting and an executive session. That's for the purpose of discussing the strategy and progress on a proposed lease of city-owned property, which is south of West 112th Avenue and east of US 36. And we're seeking instructions to city negotiators for that. Next slide, please. This week, on Tuesday, February 24th, the Planning Commission meeting is not happening. That's been canceled. On Wednesday, the 25th, there are two things happening. First is a lunch and learn, and that's called Master Your Finances. That will be hosted at the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, which is in downtown Westminster at 8845 Eden Street, and that's from noon until 1. And then second, on Wednesday, the 25th, is an Environmental Advisory Board meeting. That's City Hall, and it's also hybrid, and that starts at 6:30 and runs through until 8 p.m. And then on Thursday, the 26th, is a meeting of our Rental Housing Committee. That's right here at City Hall, and that's from 4 to 5 p.m. Next slide, please. Also this week, on Friday, the February 27th, is Coffee with a Cop, and that's with our very own Westminster Police Department. We will have some officers present at Creative Corner, 3965 West 73rd Avenue, and that will run to drop in from 9 to 11 a.m. So if you want to meet with one of our police officers and have a chat, that would be a great opportunity to do that. On Saturday are two things. Actually, there's a third one that the mayor mentioned earlier, which I also want to talk about. We have a car seat clinic, another one, a free one for our community at Fire Station 2. That's the one at 9150 Lowell. So come by anytime between 8:30 and noon to get your car seat. Learn how to professionally and correctly install your car seat for your children. Also is a low-cost pet vaccination clinic at the MAC, and that's at 3295 West 72nd, and that runs from 9 to 1 a.m. So that should be 1 p.m. So 9 to 1 p.m., and that is a low-cost pet vaccination clinic. So if your pet is in needing of a vaccine, please bring them to the MAC this Saturday. Also on Saturday, and not on this slide, is our City Council's Strategic Planning Study Session, and that's happening on, again, this Saturday, February 28th. It begins for the public. It's open to the community as well as our City Council members and staff will be there. Open to the community starting at 9 a.m. and is planned to run through till 3 p.m. on Saturday. That's located at the Westview Recreation Center, which is 10747 West 108th Avenue, and that detail will be on our City Council calendar and website for anybody that's interested in tracking. We also stream that so people can listen to it without having to come to the Westview Rec Center. Next slide, please. At our next meeting of City Council, that's on Monday, March 2nd. That's right next door in our council boardroom. I'll provide a city manager's report on the Mile High Flood District and changes to the Little Dry Creek and Shaw Heights tributary floodplain. That will be an information-only item. That's a long title, but in effect, that flood district has been working to enhance protections for our community members, and part of that will be to redefine the boundaries of the floodplain to more accurately reflect the risk profile there. Also that night will be 3 presentations, one on our Unified Development Code, and that's an update from staff. Next up will be 2026 Department Budget Roadmap presentation from 2 departments. As I mentioned, carrying on from this evening, the Finance Director as well as our Information Technology Director will come and present on their departments and their budgets. And then next up will be a proposed amendments and updates to the Westminster Municipal Code, and that will be led by our City Attorney's Office. Next slide, please. And also that evening will be 2 executive sessions. The first one will be regarding a possible purchase of a property that's located west of Alkire Street and north of 96th Avenue, and then an executive session for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the City Attorney regarding collective bargaining matters. Next slide, please. Always get a hold of your city through Access Westminster. Very convenient. If you don't have the app, you can get that for any one of your mobile devices, or you can go online directly, westminsterco.gov/Access Westminster. You can reach us anytime at 303-658-2400. Our website is westminsterco.gov, and I do still want to encourage folks to check out our transparency portal where you can track how your money is being spent, and that's westminsterco.gov/903/transparency. And here, Mayor, I should note also for any of our speakers who spoke tonight, we will follow up with you directly. We do have the material from our Huntington Trails neighbors, and we'll make sure that we follow up on that petition and request for a traffic signal, and we can provide some information back to City Council on that neighborhood request. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councilors, any questions on the report? Okay, well, I'll just say that we offer a lot of services at our city, and I'm always grateful to hear about them. And I wish I'd known about the low-cost vet vaccinations. I would have held off on my cat's vaccines last month because they were costly. So to all those who can take advantage, I encourage you to do so. With that, moving on to City Council reports. All right, we'll start with Christine Ireland. Councilor Ireland, please.
This is City Council comments, I hope, not reports. I did report earlier about a bunch of things I went to. I just want to, I appreciate everyone that came to speak. It was kind of a crazy week for me. My name originally was on the letter to our congressman and to the city citizens that I supported the statement against ICE. I do think someone should be accountable for putting my name on there, and also for plagiarizing the statement. That made it look like that I supported a plagiarism statement besides not supporting law enforcement. So the person I think that is accountable for it is not here tonight, our city attorney. And as you know, I have not supported his contract for the last 2 years because I do not trust him. And the fact that he's not here tonight shows me that he's not standing up for what has been done. I thank all those that spoke, and I really think that legal immigration is important and have a better pathway for that. I've had a couple family members that have legally become citizens of the United States. It's a difficult, expensive path, and I think that, you know, there's peaceful ways that we can improve that. But if you're here illegally and you're doing things you shouldn't be doing and you're making it so people cannot live safe, productive lives and have businesses, I am all for our federal law enforcement to do their job. I also want to thank Huntington Trails for coming out to speak. I use that road. I'm in Lexington. It is very dangerous. It is hard to turn on there. And with the new parking lot coming in, that's larger at McKay Lake, I think the traffic will even be worse. So I appreciate that coming out and speaking. It wasn't on my behalf, but it would help me in my neighborhood also, I have to say. But I appreciate them worrying about the safety of the people that live up there. It's not just their neighborhood, it's the ones surrounding it. Also, Tom, thank you for coming to pray for moisture. It is something that we need, and I appreciate your prayers. We all should be praying for that. And thank you all that came out. I appreciate your support.
Councilor Hott?
Yes, I would like to thank the people who came out for the neighborhood request for the traffic signal, and I do not take back anything I said on this dais 2 weeks ago.
Councilor Barajas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, City Manager Andrews. Now that I know whenever I want a road reopened, I'll just send an email asking for an update, and that will inspire the reopening of it. But I wanted to speak about a few of the things that I didn't mention in the update that I think were important for this seat and this setting. Last week, I went to the Broomfield State of the City, and I'm excited to go to our State of the City tomorrow as well. But when I was there as a representative of Westminster, I congratulated and offered my gratitude as a thankful neighbor to the city of Broomfield, and they returned a lot of that energy and a lot of that gratitude. So I just wanted to name publicly that we're glad for our partnership, particularly with the elected officials there and the city manager's office there as well. They were all very welcoming, and I appreciated that. I came also to the monthly community update with the mayor and the city manager that was here. I can't remember the day. There's so many things, but it was here this past week or last week. And there were quite a few people in the audience who attended, and not everyone asked a question, but I think from what I gathered afterwards from the conversations that I had was that people were interested and wanted to know about what the city was doing around the crisis of affordability, but also those who are unhoused, and I think it was very helpful. So thank you to the directors who were able to kind of speak to the STEPS program that we're doing, along with the city manager and mayor for putting that on. They were, there was questions about when the next one was going to be, and I just think that kind of outreach and energy is desired and well warranted for our city. I joined Councillor Ireland at the CML workshop. I know that she mentioned that. One of the things that I wanted to focus on up here was one of the panels that we had was a discussion around budget in a tight fiscal year, and I think that we as a council have a lot of onus on us to make sure that we are preparing for the inevitable, tightening of the economy around us. They mentioned quite a few reasons, and I won't get into all of them, but particularly with the federal government, with the ARPA funds running out and a lot of grant opportunities kind of drying up and not being replenished. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to be really creative around budgets. So I was kind of grateful for that heads up and have every intention on making sure that I stick to my role in making sure that we are a city that takes care of all of our needs. And then finally, I went to the Uplands development, or the Uplands open house, and there were a lot of people there walking around. I got to talk to a lot of folks for a while. So I thank the residents who showed up. Thank you for coming and speaking and catching me. It's a new feeling for me to be recognized in public, and so that was kind of interesting. But I did get a chance to speak with a few of the employees of Uplands or of some of the developers there, and I thanked them for their openness to inviting the community in. They were very interested in being able to have those conversations with community members, even those who weren't interested in buying. And so for everyone who was able to attend, thank you for attending. I think it really helps bolster my desire to continue encouraging every stakeholder in the city to do that important work of community engagement and conversation. So thank you for that. And I do have a question. I don't know what since I'm so new to this, I don't know what the right setting is for this, but I do have a question around the fee structures that we kind of have as a city for right-of-way fees. And I wanted to just let council know that at the next study session, I was probably going to do a poll around asking city staff to do an in-depth look at our entire fee structures. Maybe I can give a little bit more specific direction at that time, but just wanted to give everyone a heads up, particularly inspired by, the construction on Lowell, what kind of back and forth finances happened there, but also just having an in-depth look at what our fees are for right-of-way and for other uses, and if those are at parity with our surrounding area. So I'm doing some thought into it. I'm going to bring that up at the public comment or the public update at our next study session. If anyone on council wants to kind of help advise me on that, I'd be willing to kind of have those conversations and bring that up as well. So thank you.
Councillor Azadi?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for everyone who came out tonight. And thank you, City Manager, for following up with the residents there on the traffic signal. I think I'm sorry you've had to wait so long. I'm very curious as to what we can do there in the budget process. So hopefully we look into that. A few months ago, I sent out a newsletter that had a survey. So I created an affordability survey where I asked residents, tell me your ideas of what you want, of how you think we can impact affordability in Westminster on the 4 areas that you guys all keep hearing me talk about, which is groceries, childcare, utilities, and housing. I believe those are the 4 areas of affordability right now that the city, that most people who I speak with care about and what they are looking for relief from. So I expected maybe 40 people to fill this survey out, but it ended up being almost 300 people in just a couple months from one newsletter. And I wanted to just thank everyone who filled this thing out. I've been reading through all your comments in there, and there are some really, really great ideas. And I want you to know that a lot of the ideas that I've been kind of advocating for and asking questions of staff these last few months, a lot of it came from you guys. So thank you for participating and for telling me what you feel you need there. And from a engagement standpoint, I think Councilor Barajas was spot on where, the community updates that we have a lot of avenues where we try to reach out as a government to you, the people. We are working our best to make sure that is as interactive and as engaging as possible. And as you may have seen 2 weeks ago, we went through a communication plan on how we can better that entire structure and how we can reach out to you and meet you where you are. So changes there are coming, and I wanted to say that personally, I'm looking at starting what I'm calling an HOA tour. HOAs, 60% or more, I think it's 63% last I checked, City Manager, I'm not sure what the number is now, of Westminster are HOAs. And historically, we haven't had much interaction or engagement from a city standpoint with HOAs. We have been trying the last several years. We've done a significant amount of work to improve that. So what I want to do just personally is just start this tour and see how many I can hit in 26, 27. I invite my counselors, my colleagues to join me on, whenever the schedule. So my volunteers are building out a schedule of stops, let's call it, of this tour. And the concept is to meet with the HOA boards. Hopefully a lot of the residents will be there. We'll try to promote and market this so that we can have as many people as possible within that HOA, and they can personally tell, what are the issues that they're going through, how can I help as a individual, but then what can I bring back to council that can help them as an HOA. So there's lots of opportunities there, and just wanted to thank, that was one of the ideas that came out of the affordability survey, actually, was more engagement with HOAs. And several councilors, including Councilor Ireland, we've been talking about figuring out what to do with HOAs and how can we better engage them. So just wanted to shout that out, that's coming. And if you guys have any ideas, or if an HOA is listening, or if you're a member of an HOA that wants to be visited first, to be prioritized, let me know, reach out to me. And I also wanted to thank Councilor Barajas as well for his comment on the fee structure. I'm also curious, I would second that idea of right-of-way contracting and the fees that we charge, because Excel, for example, they're about to rip up 72nd to underground wires. So I'm curious, what are we charging Excel for when they rip up our sidewalks to do that undergrounding? It's important work to do it, but we need to make sure that those fees are equitable and beneficial for the city. So I'll be curious to also see what we can do with fees overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well then I'll provide my comments, which is, let's jog my thoughts here for a moment. Yes, I wanted to, Councilor Barajas brought up the Broomfield State of the City last week, which I too attended, and I wanted to let our city staff know that I may have put us in competition with Broomfield and a few other cities for best drinking water. So just let our facilities team know to be ready, you know? But they've got a contest, apparently you can submit, and they test it blind, and I think it happens in Fort Collins, and, you know, I think we can maybe do something about that. And then I just wanted the public to know, I mentioned this earlier in my report, but I did attend the Rocky Mountain Metro Airport press release and groundbreaking event earlier this week for their big transition to unleaded fuel. And so for the folks in our community that have been pushing so hard for that and pushing hard to beat the timeline on that, thank you, because you're the ones standing up for our public health and safety. And the airport hears you, and they reiterated their commitment there to helping ensure that our communities here feel heard. So I just want you to know that they are working with us, and that's a good news story. And then as for all of our speakers, thank you as always for coming out. And then I know our staff will have the Huntington Trail item addressed. And then to our other speakers who came out, I just want to say a big thank you to Mr. Nuanez, who mentioned, you know, that call for unity and getting to the root issue, because I cannot possibly think of a better idea right now than finding creative local solutions to helping folks get on the path to citizenship. So I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know how tangible it is, especially at the local level. That is a larger issue, but it turns out that some communities can help that happen if you set up shops. But of course, we've got pretty strained resources at the moment. So it comes to us to figure out, you know, well, how capable are we to put something like that together? But I think where there's a will, there's always a way. So for that, thank you. And then to all our speakers, thank you for making sure that we hear you, because we do hear you, and you do represent a portion of the population. And I hear you, and I respect your opinion. So thank you for being here. With that, do I have a motion for the consent agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
I move to approve consent items 8A through 8G.
Councilor Barajas?
Second.
Thank you. Items 8A have been, and through 8G have been moved. Is there any discussion? Well, seeing no discussion, I'll offer my own comments real briefly, which is that I am really excited. I realize this is our second time going through these, but we had a real packed agenda last time. This includes the Red Lotus, which, if you don't know about the Red Lotus Eatery, is very exciting. That is going to be opening in our downtown area, and I'm very excited. This consent agenda also includes the federal BRT, which is our bus rapid transit, and I've been pushing for that to be on its way, so this is great news. It means that it's well on its way, which is going to help commuters from us, our area, down to Denver. And it also includes renaming our downtown park, which I cannot wait for it to open. So it is going to be Aerostat. If you're not aware, the new park is going to be called Aerostat. So just wanted to call some of those items out before we went ahead and voted on it. With that, City Clerk.
Councilor Barajas.
Yes.
Mayor Carmelia.
Yes.
Councilor Azadi.
Yes.
Councilor Hott.
Yes.
Councilor Ireland.
Yes.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. There are no appointments or resignations this evening, and there are no public hearings scheduled this evening. So that moves us to item 11A, which is new business. First reading of Councilor's Bill number 5. Do I have a motion? Oh, that is a staff presentation. Forgive me.
It's a reading, so do we?
No.
There's no presentation.
That's not a presentation.
No. Just kidding.
Sorry, Mayor, there's no presentation tonight, but we have staff here if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, do I have a motion to move Councilor Bills number 5? Councilor Azadi.
I move to pass Council's Bill number 5 on first reading, amending section 11419 Westminster Municipal Code to provide for the authorization and regulation of accessory dwelling units within the city of Westminster.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dermella.
Second.
Thank you. This has been moved and seconded. Can we get roll call?
I actually had some questions on this.
Yes.
I guess you didn't see me.
I apologize. Councilor Ireland.
So this grant is going to support who? The people that already applied for this ADU dwellings that we had in our packet, or how do you apply to get these grants?
With your permission, I'm asking my colleague, our sustainability administrator, Bridger Tomlin, to address the questions about the grant opportunities associated with this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Kimball.
City Attorney is signaling that's the second item. The first item up is this one, which is on amending the Westminster Municipal Code to
Make it larger. Okay.
make it larger.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I need questions on the second, sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. I misunderstood your question.
Well, you can answer it after this, I guess.
Is there any further discussion on item 11A for the ADUs? Okay. Oh, Councilor Barajas.
I just wanted to say that I'm grateful that the city is kind of looking for, this sort of creative problem solving around, whether it's housing or just affordability in general. I'm grateful that there's little ways that we as a city can really step up and try to be creative as possible. And I think, there's no silver bullet, as all of us have said, around the affordability issue, but I think a lot of little things like this. And so I just wanted to highlight that for the community and for this council, that these sorts of things are great. So I will be voting yes on this, and I'm grateful too as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, City Clerk.
Mayor Carmelia.
Yes.
Councilor Azadi.
Yes.
Councilor Hott.
Yes.
Councilor Ireland.
Yes.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dermella.
Yes.
And Councilor Barajas.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. That moves us to item 11B, first reading of Councilor Bills number 6, amending the 2026 budget of the General Capital Improvement Fund. Do I have a motion? Councilor Azadi.
I move to pass Council's Bill number 6 on first reading, amending the 2026 budget of the General Capital Improvement Fund and authorizing a supplemental appropriation from the 2026 estimated revenues in the fund.
Mayor Pro Tem Dermella.
Second.
Thank you. This item has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilor Ireland.
I believe this was the question I was asking. Who can get these grants and how do you apply?
Good evening, Vivi Del Pizzo. The grant, we applied to receive these grants from the Colorado Energy Office. The grant will be used to implement a new pilot program for building ADUs. The goal is to have pre-approved plans that a resident that would like to build an ADU in the city can access for free. And there would be grants related to the ADUs that they built brand new if they rent this ADU out at a lower AMI level for a certain number of years. So it's to incentivize more affordability in housing, different housing stock, and bring more opportunities for residents.
So how much will you give them per?
The proposal is for $15,000. It's to cover a lot of the upfront fees and things that they would have to pay in order to build that ADU. But the main goal is just to get more development of ADU in the city.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the people that build these are educated, that their property taxes will go up, right? And it's harder to sell their home because their property taxes are higher. So I hope they're educated when they go into this, because $15,000 isn't going to go a long way when our property taxes are getting so high. So I just want them to be educated about the pros and the cons.
We can make sure that information is on the toolkit when it's getting developed. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, with that then, I do have a question as well on this, which is the piece considering the complete streets policy. I did see that we were talking about that this would ensure we had more connectivity for transportation throughout the city, but I'm wondering what all that encompasses, or what's the scope of that? Is that the entire city?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Bridger Tomlin, Sustainability Administrator. Nice to see you all. Unfortunately, we don't have Chris Chauvin, who's our Transportation and Mobility Planner, to really speak to all the details. But what I can speak to is that the proposal looks at our standards for transportation throughout the city, both for new development, redevelopment, and then city development as well. And the main goal is that would adjust our standards to make sure that we're looking at all mobility options throughout our transportation network. So if we're redeveloping a street, we're looking at, does it provide accessibility to people who have ADA considerations? Does it look at bike facilities? Does it look at proper sidewalk that's appropriate to that location? Each site would be context-based, so what works well in downtown, for example, wouldn't necessarily work well in other parts of the city. So it would be flexible, but make sure that developers in the city are looking at a keen eye to make sure that there is appropriate infrastructure for alternate modes besides just car-based transportation.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I'm glad we're doing this. And I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So this is not a comprehensive study. This is a per project basis.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you so much. Okay, roll call.
Councillor Azadi?
Yes.
Councillor Hott?
Yes.
Councillor Ireland?
Yes.
Councillor Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nermella?
Yes.
Councillor Barajas?
Yes.
And Mayor Carmelia?
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
Thank you. And do I have a motion to accept the Colorado Office's Local Impact Accelerator Grant? Are these separated? City Clerk, I'm sorry, I want to clarify. Nope. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second portion of that motion. Councilor Azadi.
I move to accept the Colorado Energy Office's Local Impact Accelerator Grant Award.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
I think we did it already.
Councillor Hott?
Yes.
Councillor Ireland?
Yes.
Councillor Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nermella?
Yes.
Councillor Barajas?
Yes.
Mayor Carmelia?
Yes.
And Councillor Azadi. Did I call Councillor?
Yes.
Did I call Councillor Hott? Okay. And the motion passes on a 7-0 vote. My apologies.
Thank you, and that concludes the business of the regular City Council meeting this evening. Before we start our 3 post-meeting presentations, City Attorney Greg Graham, is there reason for executive session?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a proposed executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy and progress on a proposed lease of city-owned property south of West 112th Avenue and east of US 36, and to instruct negotiators as authorized by Westminster Municipal Code sections 111.3C2 and C7, and Colorado Revised Statutes section 24.6.402.4A and 4E Roman 1.
Thank you. Can I please get City Council roll call to agree to go into executive session? Councilor Azadi?
Obi Azadi, yes.
Adam Barajas, yes.
Jack Johnson, yes.
Claire Carmelia, yes.
Sarah Nermella, yes.
Amber Hott, yes.
Christine Ireland, yes.
Thank you so much. With that, the time is now 7:58 p.m. and the meeting is now adjourned.
Want to go deliver?
Welcome to our City Council post meeting for February 23rd, 2026. We have a couple of staff presentations, starting with our housing updates and recommendations. City Manager?
Yes, thank you. I will turn it directly over to Director Lindsay Kimball to lead us out tonight.
Great. Thank you, City Manager Andrews. Lindsay Kimball, I'm the Community Services Director. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and councilors. Tonight, we have a fulsome presentation regarding all things housing. And with me tonight, I have our Manager of Economic Development, Stephanie Troller, our Housing Administrator, Betty Del Pizzo, and also waiting in the wings, we have Director Otzelberger of PRL, and we also have our planning manager, John McConnell, here to help us tonight. And let's go ahead and dive in. This is part of the STEPS framework that we have been speaking of over the past month or so. We last presented referencing STEPS during the presentation on the unhoused and working in that middle space between being housed and unhoused, and how can we focus our team resources to help with those, with that point in the housing continuum. So you also saw, and we provided a printed copy here, when we presented last time, when Eric and I and Kate and Haley were here, you saw this version. Tonight, we wanted to show, we've highlighted what will be discussed tonight. And you also have that as a handout there in front of you. We place it at each one of your places. So we just wanted to give that to you, and every time we present to you around this framework of steps, we'll be updating this and helping to show where in this continuum are we, what are we focusing on tonight, what's coming up in the future. So we have a lot of really great things to go over tonight, chock full of information. And also our future city council items, Director Otzelberger, myself, and the teams are working together to put together a presentation and update along tiny home village development, as well as safe parking and safe camping. And we have a confirmed date. We will be presenting on the Unified Development Code for adoption on March 2nd, which has many facets that will help, particularly with starter home support. We've been following very closely that conversation with folks, our friends in Maker Housing and others in the development community around how can we reduce some of the impediments and barriers to helping with starter home development. So we're going to be instituting a lot of those within the Unified Development Code. Again, you've seen this graphic. We just want to show you again the whole housing continuum from 0 to 120% in market rate and beyond AMI. Tonight, we are going to talk about nearly the entire continuum. How do we keep people from becoming unhoused? How can we focus resources in that area? Through how do we help preserve the homes we have and keep people in them and viable? How do we generate more product for sale, for rent? And how do we help with all income-aligned housing? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Baby, who is going to talk about those income-aligned housing terms.
There you go. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council members, Vivi Del Pizzo. We wanted to introduce, not necessarily introduce, but bring again some of these terms that are very well known around housing for some clarification of what do we mean when we say certain terms. We really like to use the term income-aligned housing because it reflects varying income levels and market conditions. Ideally, nobody should be spending more than 30% of their income on housing. If somebody's spending more than 30%, that means that they're housing burdened. If they're spending more than 50%, that means they're extremely housing burdened, which means that they're giving up food or medical assistance in order to stay housed. Some of the other terms that you might hear a lot are the NOAHs. They are naturally occurring affordable housing. So those are houses that are at a lower price point, usually for lower income levels, but they don't need any mechanism in order to be that price point. They might be older homes, smaller lots. They just naturally occur in our area. Affordable housing, when you hear that, we use the HUD's definition, which is up to 80% of the AMI. A lot of times we use affordable housing in projects that have an affordability mechanism attached to it, so a deed restriction or a covenant restriction that they have to maintain a certain AMI level in that property. Attainable housing, you will hear that used sometimes in lieu of affordable, sometimes when they're trying to mention a middle income. Attainable housing is usually used when you are referring to residents that don't really fit into an affordable housing product, but they also don't quite make enough to be able to afford a market rate. So it's developing a product that it's at a AMI that they can live in without being house burdened. Yeah.
Sorry, on the AMI calculation, and anyone can kind of step in and answer this, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah.
Is that number, so you mentioned like 30% being housing burden, is that pure like mortgage payment? Does that include?
It includes utilities.
It includes utilities and like HOA fees, okay.
Yeah, trash. It's pretty much all the whatever you need to be able to stay in that house. Okay. So property taxes.
And escrow and all that stuff, okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Middle income housing, usually it reflects those that are between the 80 to 120% AMI. Middle income a lot of times is also called the workforce housing. You see both terms there. Workforce is not widely used anymore so much because it kind of implies that only those that have, let me rephrase it. It implies that if you are working, you have housing, but we also have a lot of residents that are working and are unhoused. So to kind of eliminate some of that confusion, most of the times we use middle income housing. And then market rate, which is just whatever the market is offering at that moment, usually at the 100% AMI.
I get to test out some of these new terms, everybody, so watch out. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Stephanie Troller. We know you're going into your strategic plan this weekend. We really want to give you with a snapshot of where we are and what we've been doing the last few months, as well as some policy considerations to consider during your time together on Saturday. Currently, we have just over 2,800 multifamily units that are restricted from 30 to 80% AMI. And with the overlook at the uplands, we have another 247 coming online as we speak. So we'll have 3,000 affordable restricted units. Last fall, we came and said we were going to research what can we build? What does our comp plan allow? What's available land inventory? What does our zoning allow? And based on our initial staff analysis, we can build up to just over 4,000 multifamily units and just over 2,000 single-family homes that are current without having to amend the comp plan or make any changes. I will say we don't own all that land, so we can influence, but we can't necessarily force development on property we don't own. Here's one of those terms, NOAA. I think it's important to note that 33% of our existing multifamily are naturally occurring affordable housing, and I think it's really important to keep the preservation of our existing affordable and our natural occurring units. We have, it's that attainability that we're looking for our residents. We do have a rental unit shortage based on our housing need assessment, 3,000 up to 50% AMI, 1,400 up to 100 to 2,000, and a 1,300 unit shortage for that luxury unit. So if you recall, for those of you who worked on council in the fall, it's kind of a counterintuitive situation where not having enough luxury units puts downward pressure on the market rate and therefore the affordable. So by not having enough luxury units, it puts more pressure on not having enough affordable units. So when we talk about income aligned, it's important to think of the full spectrum as we've been talking about. You recently received, I believe, the study from Boulder CU, which showed the type of ownership for rental property, 3.7%. And that's consistent with what's happening throughout the state, actually a little bit lower. So I think we are trending normal there. Okay, so what have we been doing since September? Vivi, Lindsay, and I have been pretty busy, actually. You just heard tonight the 2 items on the ADU pilot. This was a great collaboration between our team, sustainability team, and we were awarded for the ADU portion, $300,000. We talked about that a little bit, so I'll save time on that portion. We've collaborated with Dr. Cog on the regional housing needs assessment. On average, we did ours about 3 years ago. I would say on average, a great time frame is 3 to 5 years to update those. We also need to work on a housing action plan, which is going to be coming probably next year as well, we hope. And we are always working with developers. You saw one in executive session earlier this year. We have a few more on the pipeline that we hope that you will appreciate. Sometimes you get a couple what I would call tire kickers, and that's okay too. We always leave that opportunity open for any developers, encouraging that development of affordability in the city. As we finished that, we partnered with CU on the real estate ownership, and as part of the Prop 123 requirements, and again to save some time, we're finalizing an expedited development review process, which again helps us stay compliant with our Prop 123, and I think developers will appreciate it as well. We are in the process of further analyzing those income-aligned housing sites. We want to, based on all the affordability, all the available land, we want to come in and start looking at things and really start slicing the onion to see what specific barriers are there on a given site. We know every site has a different topography, different infrastructure constraints. So we really want to look at all that, take a deeper dive, and then prioritize the areas and the sites that we really think we can be impactful, and then we'll come back and present that. We have contracted with a consultant on that one. It's a deep dive. We've exceeded our new unit count to meet the Prop 123. We've done that through the overlook at the Upland and Makers units at the Upland as well. We actually have counties wanting to come and take some of our unit count so they can meet their Prop 123, which I think is also, which we've already met ours. We can share, so there's more resources for all the developers in all of our community. But it's a good conversation to be having with our partners across different jurisdictions as well. Through the CDBG program, we've kept on with our EHR, our Emergency and Essential Home Repair. We've expanded our LIFT program, and we've added a paint-a-thon, again, to keep that affordability for people who want to age in place and those who income qualify. We've identified a few partnerships for a DPA, down payment assistance program, and I think there's some great opportunity there. I think we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper, and I'll give it back to Vivi so she can give it to you.
Take the microphone. There you go. Thank you. So, based on the housing needs assessment, based on a comparative analysis that we've done with our partners, cities, in the area, based on, excuse me, the presentation we brought to council last September, these are the main policy considerations that would really move the needle in some of the housing actions that we've been doing. So the first policy consideration that we would like to bring is the Housing Trust Fund. And we always like to bring the pros and cons for a lot of these. The pros for a housing trust fund is being able to support housing programs. It would be creating our own fund specific for housing development, housing programs that we could provide funding, for example, to the down payment assistance program or preservation of the NOAAs, provide gap funding to help finance some developments, allowing negotiators to act quickly when a certain opportunity arises. If there is a particular project that meets all of the criteria of the city at the moment, it would give some of those opportunities. The con is, how do you sustain a fund? It's challenging, like everything that involves any sort of funding. We do have some ideas and suggestions on how we could do that, but the challenge is not only how to the initial seed money, but also to continue with sustaining it. An inclusionary housing ordinance. The goal of an inclusionary housing ordinance is to bring that affordable, with an affordable mechanism attached to it, housing, so specific to a lower AMI with a deed restriction, into areas that are usually all market rate. A lot of times within one development, let's say a developer is bringing a market rate development to the city, we can stipulate through an inclusionary housing ordinance, 15% of your units will have to be, and these are just, obviously we're not talking about the final numbers here, it's just an example so you can identify what would entail this. 15% of the units could be affordable, restricted in the same development as a market rate, or a developer would have to pay cash in lieu that would go to our housing trust fund, so we could provide different programs or more housing development through the lower AMI. The pros would be one type of way to fund the housing trust fund in creating more income-aligned restricted units based on AMI needs in every area of the city. Affordable developments are very challenging to pencil with the finance, and a lot of times to get certain incentives from the state or the federal government, you need to be at a certain area of the city. That's why they tend to congregate. This would be our own way of making them everywhere. Now the cons would be, with market uncertainty, maybe it wouldn't be that effective. As everybody knows, rents are going down, prices are going down. It may not be that effective. It does have a potential to slow development. Some developers might decide to go to one of our neighboring communities that don't have a housing ordinance, where they don't have to pay cash in lieu or build some type of units. And a lot of the times, those fees end up being passed through to the resident. So it's the developer, a lot of times, is not a cost that they eat. They end up sometimes passing it down to the resident that is going to buy that property or rent that property. And just as a reminder, we only have about 2% of our land developable right now, just to think about what would be available for us. Another policy consideration is a predictable development assistance. This would be created in a sliding scale where, because currently, as you know, we bring development assistance agreements to you when we have an affordable property being built or, different projects in the city that really meet the city's strategic plans. Having a predictable sliding scale would really help bringing more certainty for negotiations in the city. It would also assist developers predicting some of their costs. They would know ahead of time when they're in the early stages of figuring out how they want to build certain project, what they could request of the city. And if they bring certain items, they would get a little more incentive or a little less parking spaces, certain things that could be used within that. It's also a source of gap funding. We hear a lot from developers that gap funding for projects, it's challenging. One of the cons is reduction in city revenue from these projects. More incentives that we provide, less revenue for the city. We included right of first refusal in this presentation. Last time we were here with PRL, I just wanted to talk about a little bit what is the right of first refusal and if we want to consider utilizing it. So there was a bill passed a few years ago that LIHTC, which are the low-income housing tax credits, that started around 30 years ago. The covenants for them are usually 30 years, which means that there are a lot of properties that have an affordability mechanism attached to them that are going to expire on that mechanism. So that law came in to help cities maintain these properties. A lot of the properties that have an affordable mechanism attached to them belong to our housing authorities. Their goal is to maintain them, is to continue keeping them affordable. They usually seek funding to invest in the property and continuing with that affordability. Now, if it is from a private owner, they could just sell a property for market rate. So the right of first refusal came in, which puts the city in the position of being able to purchase these properties and continue the affordability in them. What the city can do, if the city would like, is to pass that right of first refusal directly to the housing authorities. So the housing authorities could have that right to purchase that property before a market rate investor. We did do an analysis, and in the next 10 years in Westminster, we'll have 6 properties that will have their expiration of the affordability mechanism end. The pros of implementing something that either the city decides, yes, we are going to go ahead and start purchasing these properties and continue with the affordable mechanism, or we want to pass this on to a regional housing authority so they can act faster, is preserving the inventory where we talked about how important it is. It also allows the housing authorities or ourselves, if that's what we choose to do, to plan for these purchases as these start to expire. The cons would be high cost of acquisition, and if they are already owned by the housing authorities, it might not make a very meaningful impact, but it is also just another mechanism that we can easily put in place to preserve these properties. There you go.
Okay. And we also like to talk about process streamlining. Oftentimes, time is money. We know that. So we have 2 suggestions here for your consideration. Staff has vetted these, and we've also this is also a reaction to what we've heard from this body, from private developers, and very quickly I'll go through the pros and cons. So the first one there is to discontinue the mandatory multifamily ODP or official development plan reviews by City Council. This was instituted in 2021 2022 as a way to have greater oversight by the City Council of multifamily. There was a feeling at the time of not enough oversight of those projects. It does add quite a bit of time, and we'll also point out that you do have the option always to elevate any project to City Council discussion. So the pros there, it would reduce the time to market and costs for all of these projects and save significant time for the applicant, staff, and City Council. The cons, of course, are it's one less touch point and one less public meeting, though these are heard by the Planning Commission, which is a public body and holds public meetings. Also, it's less opportunity, of course, for feedback from City Council on these developments. The second one there, similar and related, is discontinue concept plan reviews, or the CPRs. These occur during your study sessions. The pros, again, reduce time to market and costs for the project. It saves significant time for the applicant, staff, and council. It also eliminates confusion for residents. We have had some instances where, as much as we do note on the advertisements, the signs, the mailers, that it will be a study session, there's no opportunity for public comment. It has caused confusion. There's not many people have shown up to speak, and it causes some consternation when they're not able to speak at those meetings. Cons is one less touch point, again, one less public meeting, less opportunity for early feedback from City Council directly. And also another statistic that we wanted to share was that we currently have been tracking the number of these and how many have actually come to fruition to an actual technical review and an ODP, and it's less than 25% of the CPRs thus far that you have seen, that the body has seen. Have moved forward. So these are just suggestions from staff. We can do any of these, all of these. And finally, I just want to conclude, this is a summary of all of the 6 policy direction that we are seeking tonight. And this is the end of our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and we thank you for your time and look forward to your guidance.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to council discussion, I'm looking at the time. If we're amenable to it, let's set about 10 minutes for questions, and then we can move on to each individual voting on what we think, if that makes sense for folks. So let's do a quick 10 minutes of questions. Councilor Zadi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. It's very exciting. When I first read through this, I think it really does reflect that staff is being super responsive to all the things you're hearing from council these last few months. Some of them for a few years, like tiny homes. So I'm very excited about tiny homes, as you know. So thank you so much for bringing this forward and for being proactive. Is the first thing I wanted to say, because you have been hearing a lot of this from us, and it's nice to see that reflected here. Also, thanks for the pros and cons. Love that. Fantastic. I've been asking for more pros and cons, more opportunities for us to see both sides of each of the things that you bring to us, so love that. From a standpoint of all of these, I actually love all of them with the exception of inclusionary housing. So Peter Lafari, which I think most of us know, he has been a proponent of what I'm about to say, but as we know, Maker Housing, they care a lot about affordable housing, they care a lot about this, but he is very much against this. And not just him, but lots of different organizations, because they've done lots of studies on this, and it does slow down development, and it lowers the profit margin of a project, which always, I wouldn't even say sometimes, I think not always. All right, so it's not always, but it's also not sometimes. It's somewhere in between. There's a high percentage of these projects the cost will get passed down. And the way they do it is by increasing the rent, right? So they won't eat the cost, they will actually pass it through, and it's a hidden tax on renters. So although I love the concept, in practical use, when cities have done this, they've reversed course, and it's just, the data's not there to show that it works. I I do think a lot of, almost everything else that you've said will definitely impact housing stock, but affordable housing stock, particularly if we get rid of the ODP approval piece. I think the time suck, right, that process does for a developer is it's amazing how much time they have to spend going through that extra step, and it's not necessary anymore. Not with the priorities of this council, in my opinion. So I would definitely be a proponent of getting rid of that, and the concept plan review is very confusing for residents. They get mailers, they think it's a real project, they don't know it's just a super optional, thing that's not even part of the real process yet, and it's getting rid of that will definitely increase the amount of the affordable housing stock that we need. Thank you for the corporate housing data study. I read through it. Fascinating stats, a lot of stats in there that are kind of eye-popping, right? I love the fact that overall it's a low number. And I think getting and keeping a pulse on that is going to be important long-term, because there is a trend the last 5 to 10 years of corporations buying up stock. They're going community to community. So if they ever do target Westminster, we'll know, because we should. So one of my proposals coming this Saturday is to not only have our Westminster housing needs assessment be done on a 3-year cycle, but to build in this corporate analysis into that, so that we just always have a pulse on what's happening there. And not just for keeping an eye on that, but it also helps us to target some of the assistance programs that we might be coming up with, right? To assess the short-term rental impacts, and to make sure owner occupancy stays a priority. So thanks for doing that. It may have seemed like an arbitrary exercise, but it's very important that now we know, right? Before we were guessing that maybe do we know if people actually own homes? Now we know it's a very low number, but to keep it that way, I think all of the other things that we're doing will help, especially the first right of refusal. I love that. Preserving affordable housing will be key, will be very important. And lastly, I just wanted to say that I'm a big advocate for tying the developer assistance with the items that we actually need. So if a project wants to have a grocery store built into it, mixed use, that owner or developer should have more of there should be a sliding scale, and it should be based off the needs that we have identified in the plan, right? The strategic plan as to what's important to us. So childcare, groceries, those sorts of things, they should get more incentives. So I love the concept of predictable assistance. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And that eliminated the question round. So why don't we just go down the line? I think that might be easier.
I would like to say a few things since I'm on the other side of the fence.
Sorry for taking so long, guys. I didn't realize.
Councilor Ireland.
So I'm for free markets, and I think the market's working. 2-bedroom apartments have gone down 14% in the last year. We have overbuilt apartments. They're coming down. The rent's coming down. We're not focusing on jobs. Like, we need to use some of our land for industry and jobs, not just housing. And we found out 5% of our homes are owned by corporations. I think we should have a ballot measure to force those people to pay double property taxes. Incentivize them not to do what they're doing. I'm not for government owning homes. That's very socialist, communist. That happens in communist countries. I don't want to live in a communist country, so I'm not for right of refusal. And I think the market's working because rents are coming down because we've overbuilt apartments. But are we going to build all housing and no businesses? Because that's where we're headed in this city. And we only have 2% of our property left. And I know what people want because my houses in my neighborhood have sold in 8 to 10 days recently. So the high end, there's a shortage of houses. They're selling quickly. And so do single family homes that I don't believe corporations should be owning them. And I think we should do something to incentivize them not to buy in Westminster.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Is that something we can discuss or maybe put on a later?
Yes, Mayor, to your question, I would need to work very closely with our city attorney's office. I know that getting into a lot of uncharted territory, but we actually have been doing some preliminary research. There have been efforts in other states actually tying the restrictions, doing it through a zoning rather than an all-out ban. I'm sure Attorney Graham can speak to that better than I can, but we actually have been looking into some legwork on how to address that corporate ownership piece and its effect on the price of single-family homes. So I think we could certainly, I don't want to speak for City Attorney, but we'd be happy to keep on with that research and come back to you with further information.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Brock.
Yeah, just a few things. First, just want to echo a lot of what Councilor Ireland said, particularly around the ballot measure. I also, think that it's a great sign that rents are falling, that house prices can be falling. I think that means some of this proactive work is indeed working. On the slide that mentioned like the tiny house village, and that there was something that's maybe missing, or maybe I'm missing it, is Councilor Ireland had mentioned a village in Utah that during the conference that she had went to. I know City Manager Andrews mentioned a bit of like staff visit, and then also in Aurora there's something similar. If this could, I just would like to reiterate that I think that's kind of important. I would love to learn more about that. If that can be either added in this, I want to, I don't want to, again, give direction if that's inappropriate, but I wanted to kind of echo it and bring it up again.
Yes, Councilor.
A quick question. I have one question just about negotiations. I know one of the pros was around negotiations. In one of the, this one, I would just like a little bit of insight on what the current feeling is around from like the negotiating team, the negotiators. Do they feel they have clear direction from council? How long does that feedback tend to take? So if there's a specific project that negotiators are in negotiations with, what does that timeline look like, in terms of that? And then, how clear, confident, and quick, like those sorts of that direction. If that's now, that's great. If that's later, that's fine. I would just
sure.
And then, should I pause? I don't want to. I have one more thing, but I can pause on that. If there is a response, I don't want to force a response, I guess, unless you have one ready. Yeah.
I do. Actually, Councilor, I could. If that's okay. I definitely have an answer. As one of those negotiators, and the team has, we've discussed this quite a bit. So, what that would give to negotiators is a much more solid footing, I would say, and confidence that when we talk to someone, and even if it's the first time we've met that developer, because we want to be out there finding more partners to work with who may be in Colorado or elsewhere, and bring them to our city and introduce them to us. It would help us, instead of saying, well, a couple times we've been successful, council has approved XYZ, but we can't guarantee anything, and there's no official policy on the books. What we are asking for here would be, we would come back to you with a very detailed sliding scale of, if you do this, you get this. Now, it's not saying that there aren't additional things that we can do. It doesn't take away all creativity. You're never going to write the best incentive policy. I know after decades of this that you're not going to cover every situation. So you're still going to need to be creative and think outside the box. But if we at least can have a more solid standing and know we're not just talking in potential hypotheticals. If there's an actual policy that is passed that we can stand on, it's something that we could promote, frankly, and it would, as Vivi had said, they have earlier in the process, as they're crafting these pro formas and their development plan, they would be able to bake those in and not have it be such a question mark.
Okay.
May I add just one point of clarification on that? I think what we're seeing a lot from developers right now is that to get the low income tax credits, it's becoming increasingly more competitive with any state or local, federal. It's increasingly, so like we did for our last executive session, it gives an additional level of reassurance to both the developer and their application if they get that kind of thumbs up from us beforehand as well. Now, that doesn't mean the development's going to go forward. It could mean that they just weren't competitive enough. But having those conversations early on will likely be bringing one. I don't want to jinx anything. Within a couple months, that similar situation that they would like to see the commitment from the city before they go and seek others. So that's also, I think, important to recognize.
Great, thank you. And just one final note. This is kind of an offer to City Council. So one of the cons on the CPR adjustment is that less of a touch point, one less touch point. In kind of thinking through what this process could look like, I know that we've gotten a lot of feedback that this does extend times. There's a lot of things that fall by the wayside, but some developers do like that helpful touch point, that feedback from City Council. I also think that this council has a good perspective. People often have things that they want to say. I'm wondering if there's any wisdom in maybe I'll get beat up for saying this, like a developer town hall where we're able to have touch points periodically throughout the year, where maybe we're not commenting on specific plans, but we're able to mention things that we've seen in plans, things that are on our mind, and have some sort of, it's a public touch point, but it won't necessarily be for specific plans. And it's an opportunity to attend to that desire for those who want to build and develop, to hear what we're saying, potentially for both, I would say that to Council Island's point, for both home development, but also for business development as well. So just maybe an opportunity for general commentary if this does go through, as a way to attend to that con. That was my last point, sorry.
And did you want to make?
No, I was just throwing that out there for council. I didn't necessarily I didn't want to tie it to this. I just wanted to offer it as something.
Did you want to throw your opinions on each of the above, or do you want to wait?
I can wait. I can
go back to the slide for. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're waiting. Okay, Councilor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be pretty quick. To Councilor Barajas' point, I would prefer to poll council not on getting rid of the CPR, but of instead making it optional and removing the requirement that they need to notice neighbors through mail and the other requirements. That way we can get touch points for developers who maybe feel like it's beneficial to them for council, but those who think it drives cost don't necessarily need to come before council. And by removing the notice requirements, we don't have to drive additional cost on those projects. So my request would be to instead of eliminate it, poll my colleagues on just making it that optional pathway. The other very quick thing, for the right of first refusal, my preference would be to our housing authority as the option for right of first refusal as we kind of go through that polling process. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Jack, for that idea, would that also be volunteering? Would it be optional for council? So council would need to also approve, right?
Yeah.
Concept plan?
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Yeah, so it would be, if someone who has a project wants to come before us, but we don't necessarily think we need to or have the time to in our agenda, we leave it up to the mayor and city manager and staff to approve it coming on our agenda, as every other agenda item does, but so not necessarily giving them the right to seek before us, but giving them the option and then letting obviously the mayor and the city manager manage our agenda as is appropriate.
Did you have an opinion on the first three?
I support the Housing Trust. I share Councilor Hazadi's point on inclusionary housing ordinance, although I don't want to shut the door, so I would actually prefer to table it so I can do some more in-depth work, and I support the predictive development assistance.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay, so I might just go in order of each of these. For the Housing Trust Fund, sure, if we have money to put into it, sounds cool. I just want to make sure, you know, if we're trying to create a fee that's attached to certain types of development, I do worry a little bit as that, you know, cumulatively adds to what we're already suffering with making projects work. And that also extends over to commercial development as well. So I'm a little tentative over how we fund that. So there's that. The inclusionary housing ordinance, I too have looked through and done a lot of study on these, and particularly with the very small amount of development that we have left that we'd be able to capture. I'd rather see us focus on voluntary affordable housing. So through things like the next thing, which is the predictable development assistance, having a really clear toolkit, I think is a great idea. So I would love to see that no matter what. But the IHL, I don't think it's worth our time. The right of first refusal, can I just ask a question about that? Because I am a little tentative about sort of extending the time frame for people to sell a property, get it moving. So how would we, do that?
So right now we have the right of first refusal already. So if affordable with a mechanism property wants to sell, if that deed restriction is expiring, if they want to sell, they have to give the city the right to purchase it.
Okay.
This would be, do we want to keep that right with us? Do we intend to eventually buy these properties to maintain them affordable? Or do we want to explore the option of passing this authority to the housing authorities? So when that property is going on market, the housing authorities can immediately be the ones to do that bidding.
Got it. Okay. Sorry for.
Dees that make more sense?
Yes. Okay. I was thinking it would extend a market rate, and I was just like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
To deal with.
It's just they would be the first ones to be allowed to purchase if they're at a certain price point. So it helps extend the life of preserving that affordable.
And just as a reminder, there's 6 available, and they're currently owned by the housing authorities.
Yeah.
So it's kind of. Yes, we can extend it, but the impact would probably not be, it would be minimal.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have in terms of, if it's.
Sure, it's better to need it or have it and not need it than the other way around.
Right, yeah, but I would prefer that we find some other way through negotiations or something to get a longer deed restriction or, aside from having to purchase it. What was it? What did I not write on here? Okay, yeah, I'm fine with the multifamily ODP stopping with the Planning Commission. I think we have probably a neighborhood meeting anyway that's tied to that process, and then that second meeting then is for people to come in and speak again at Planning Commission, so I think that's adequate. And Planning Commission can also elevate it up to, and so one question I had was, if a project does the director also have the ability to refer a project to?
The city manager has that authority to make that decision also. So there is that additional uplift to city council.
Yeah, okay, so we have.
Just the city manager.
Okay, and then you could
Yes.
So I would say, I think we have a lot of outlets there. Concept plan reviews, I, like Councilor Johnson, I'm interested in seeing if we could make them optional. If somebody wants to bring something, because I understand to some degree applicants were kind of interested in being able to test drive an idea with council, especially like a comp plan change. So, I'm open to that, but I understand that maybe they have to pay for that. Here's a revenue source. So that's a thought.
CFO, you like that, right? That's a good idea.
Write that one down.
I feel like it needs a $1 million.
Yeah, I should have my cat on my lap right now.
We all split it for a party.
Pizza party.
So one thing I did have in my head regarding housing overall is just keeping people housed. And I don't know exactly how this could fall, but there's a couple of things. I know we're limited regarding housing stabilization in terms of being able to play with rents at the state level, but I'm wondering if we can change that into some sort of voluntary incentive-based way, because we have, I think as you mentioned in one of the earlier slides, about 3,000 units of NOAA, naturally occurring affordable housing stock, or no, 33% of our multifamily. And what I have seen in some of our rental developments is sort of a predatory practice with raising rents significantly after the first year. And so people, one, are not overly educated that they can, negotiate and push back on that. And two, they're kind of trapped. They spend a lot of money to move into units, and they don't have the ability to just pick up and move. And so I would love to encourage good behavior by, maybe there's some way where, is there, maybe even with the Housing Trust Fund that magically gets funded, maybe it's through the Housing Lift program. Can it be extended a little bit further? I'd like to be able to have these multifamily property managers, maybe if we can get them to do, if they also need to do improvements, right? And they're always behind. So is there some assistance with that? And then they agree to manage rent increases. Or there's a deed restriction, but I think there's a middle ground of managing rent increases, because maybe they're not at an AMI level that they would want to commit to.
I don't know if I can respond to that, but we have actually, that is one of our recommendation, is that we asked for funding for a NOAA lift.
Okay.
NOAA,
so that's okay.
And that would be part of the Housing Trust Fund and one of the programs that we could fund.
So I would just want to tie our property managers, which are not, some are not the best behaving folks, to not have predatory practices. And so, okay, great. And then the other thing on, I do want to make sure that we are putting our money housing-wise into something that's the most effective. And honestly, there's so many things in here that are great. I just want to make sure that we're, if we're doing some type of sheltering or, tiny homes or something like that, that we're also thinking about those long-term management consequences. I think there's a range of what, let's say, tiny homes can be, right? You can just one and done them, sell them on a cute little plot of land. That looks not overly efficient use of land. I'd rather say multifamily, but, there's that. But then if it's more of a, interim shelter type of thing, that does come with an annual price tag. And so I just want us to be aware of, if we're doing something like that, what does that cost? And then again, what does that mean in terms of what we're sacrificing on some other end? So that's just for all of us to think about as we go into, Saturday. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hott?
I don't have anything else to add. I'm really excited for what you brought forward. Also super excited for what I see in Q1, 2, 3, and 4. Especially excited about the safe parking and safe camping. Really excited about transitional housing because that's so important. I do share the same concerns with the inclusionary housing, but I am really, really excited with everything that you brought to us.
Thank you.
And I agree with Councilor Azadi that it's obvious that you have been listening to what we've been saying over these past few months. And so really, really appreciate the work that you've been doing. Really, really happy to see this.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Barajas?
I got all my stuff in.
Do you have, I didn't get any opinions, though, on the 6 items that they're asking for our
Yes.
input on.
Are we going to vote on each of these right now?
Yes, I'm kind of getting a poll for them because our staff needs our direction on each of these items.
Okay, sorry. I thought we were going to do, like, you were going to pull us on each individual one all together. We were going to, if we had other things. Sorry, so that was my mistake on protocol. Okay, so I agree with Councilor Johnson's amendment or offer for the CPR, and I guess, does that reflect just the CPR, right? Not the OD, not the ODP? Okay. So that would be I don't need not everything needs to be a town hall, so I don't need that piece to it. I also like the idea that and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Johnson, on the right of first refusal, can you repeat? Yeah. Can I ask you to repeat? Sorry, I don't want to.
Yeah, we would pass on our right of first refusal to the housing authority rather than exercise it ourselves because we don't. They're the ones that actually own the housing.
Yeah, I think that makes logistical sense, and so I would kind of offer that amendment and support for that amendment, or amending it for that to reflect that. I would wish to table the inclusionary housing ordinance, though I will be honest that I'm also kind of partially I'm against it, but I think that's one that kind of in my nature I'm hesitant to outright reject it, so I would like to potentially table it. Even if it's an email kind of discussion later or an email poll later, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily need to be here. The Housing Trust Fund, like Councilor Mella said, sure, question mark, right? But yeah, that has a positive support for me. The PDA as well. And yeah, and then also the mandatory, it seemed kind of biased on like focusing just on multifamily development on the ODP, mandatory ODP reviews. So in support of kind of just evening the playing field and having the standard process for all. So I'm in support of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that.
No. Okay, and then I have a few questions as well, which the Housing Trust Fund, is that something that the Community Foundation would be able to help with?
We're exploring a lot of different alternatives on how we could fund that. That is potentially one of them. It could be through different fees from a lot of different processes. So if council would like us to explore, we can bring all of the alternatives that we find that would potentially fund a housing fund.
Okay. Well, it looks like that's going to be one that we seem to have strong agreement on. So
yes,
I'm looking forward to hear those partnerships. Something I, to be honest, don't have a whole lot of background on, so willing to hear more, but I'm curious about is the developer agreements. We don't currently stand for them, but is there a place where if we allowed them that we could have some more flexibility to allow something in place to happen in exchange for development?
If I'm understanding your question, you're asking for like what the standard development agreement, like a development assistance package would look like.
No, just developer agreements where they could provide something other than, let's say, so we have the one where they have to provide open space or fee in lieu.
Okay.
But I don't think that we allow them to work with other organizations or nonprofits in our city. Is that correct?
We don't disallow it. I think I want to ask a clarifying question. So what's coming to my mind is very similar to the Maker project where they partnered with the Adams Head Start program to put childcare on the ground floor. That has pros and cons as well. I think there is a lot of opportunity. It also adds a lot of cost. What happens, especially if you're going for like a LIHTC project, you'd have to condominiumize that, and it adds complexity to an already complex project. There are developers who have that capability. I would say the vast majority don't want to burn up their pre-development costs trying to figure those sort of questions out.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And that's interesting because I had heard that we didn't allow them, so I was curious as to why, and that maybe neighboring cities did. But if that's not true,
I don't think we don't allow them. Okay. I mean, I think we would like to see kind of that
how to encourage that.
Yeah, multi-use. It's just hard in the market.
Yeah.
And if I may, I would like to ask a clarifying question to make sure that we get you the right information. May I ask, could you give an example of the type of agreement and what those partners, maybe in a perfect world, what that?
Let's say a community assistance project, right? Just something, or even if it was an art installation, or if it was to like, you know, our pollinator gardens, or if it was to maybe helping one of our nonprofits, you know, do we allow that kind of open, a contract agreement to occur?
I would have to look to the city attorney. I think they'd all have to be parties to the agreement if we're requiring something, which, you know, as Ms. Troller said, it adds a layer of complexity, but I don't think there's I'd have to look to the attorney, but I don't think there's a prohibition. So I think we could get as creative as you want to get.
Yeah, sounds good. And this is just coming from different parties. It's not all connected. So that's why it's pieces for me. I'm sorry.
Mayor, for clarification, one option there that staff will now look at would be maybe not necessarily linking it. What I'm hearing is that the labor-intensive or time-intensive part is negotiating that third party, and the city could, I think, mandate a fee, like an arts fee, that goes into an arts fund. We actually currently have a very, very modest collection on that, for example. We could model it similar as to what we do to the PLD, or the public land dedication, where it's pooled, and then city council disperses those to different places, and then that way the city could then enter into some agreement with a pollinator project or something, but it wouldn't necessarily in that model it wouldn't necessarily link to that particular project, but it might actually be deployable to another area that's more in need or in a different need, if that makes sense. So we can look at those options for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for all the additional information.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm thinking like a first-time home buyer fund, since it's housing. And that's same with this property tax increase for those corporations that own homes. That should go into a first-time home buyer fund too.
Or property tax assistance fund.
You name it.
Thank you. And then one piece I've heard a few of us mention in the past that we haven't really talked about, and I realize might require bringing in a few of our partners like the fire department. But, you know, should we talk about our sprinkler requirement? Because that is a very tangible, hands-on, hard cost that is extremely high. And so just taking a look at feasibility around that requirement. At least, and even if it's maybe multifamily versus single family, but bringing that back. And that's something I'd plan to bring at the strategic plan, but since we're talking about housing, making housing more affordable, is that something we can examine?
Certainly, yes, Mayor. And we could bring that back in a study session with our partners, with fire, as well as our chief building officials.
Right. I realize that's sensitive, and I appreciate their thorough work in our city and how hard that probably was to pass. So, and then I heard from several counselors discuss the first right of refusal, and I was going to say something similar. It sounds like, it'd be nice to pass that on to Maker Housing or something like that. But what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, for council's awareness is that if we had the first right of refusal, then that's up to us to recommend that on, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so is there any different, feel free to expand on that. If there's any different recommendation, should we immediately pass, is there any con to an ordinance that pass that immediately on to our partners?
From staff's perspective, I would say no. Because of the high cost, you can imagine, of purchasing a multifamily, 100 or 200 units of multifamily, that's cost prohibitive as well. Our partners are the owners already of these projects, so we would, if we can automate that, I would say in a way, it would just save time for us to pass it.
And that is just if an affordable property would want to sell it for market rate, we would have that right to intervene so we could continue with the affordability. And that's where some jurisdictions are giving that authority to the housing authorities, because they are the ones that would have the capability of continuing that affordability, managing the property, and all of that.
Thank you. In that case, I personally am for keeping the first right of refusal as it stands. Any other thoughts there? And does anyone still have further questions on that or want to pursue passing that on? Okay. Councilor Johnson.
Just to be clear, Mayor, I think as it stands is different from what we were recommended, which is to pass it on directly to our housing authority. Those are different things.
Correct, and that's what I was just clarifying, and they just clarified why we would want that to stand and not pass it on directly, so that we could intervene. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, please finish. I don't want to interrupt. But
no, and so if we still want to be firm about passing it on directly, I think I'll just add my opinion on this, which is if it goes to us, then we have the ability to intervene and say that we want to keep it. And ensure that whatever housing authority gets it, or if we want to buy it. But essentially, we can then choose which housing authority gets it, right? So we're making sure that that happens either way. Councilor Barajas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, from what I understood, and I can pass this back to staff, the automation on passing through, so I'm just confused a little bit. Yeah, take this off. The automation on passing it through would be if we amend it to Councilor Johnson's thought on the housing authority. Is that not, am I misunderstanding that? Or if you could just maybe reiterate,
I can clarify, yeah, sorry. So to clarify, right now, we have the right of first refusal. So if you don't do anything and a property goes for sale for market rate, the city would have the option to be the first buyers. If the city doesn't want to buy, then it goes to the market. Anybody can buy. If we want to pass this right of being the ones to say, no, thank you, I don't want to purchase this, or yes, I would like to purchase this, we would have to have an ordinance to pass that right to our housing authorities. And then that would go directly to them. So if a property would be sold for, there is an affordability mechanism that is expiring and now they want to sell that property. The city wouldn't be the ones to acquire that or not acquire. That would go directly to the housing authority and they would decide if they want to acquire it or not. It would be just to streamline the process and give them the option to be the first ones to give an offer into that property. So we would have to amend it. Does that clarify?
Yes. Votes I got right now are pretty mixed on that. Do we want to come back to that, or do we want to take another poll around this?
We can re-poll. I'd prefer to re-poll.
Okay, let's re-poll. Councilor Azadi, which direction do you want to take on this one?
I'll wait last.
Okay, Councilor Hott.
I'd like to take the direction that staff is recommending.
Okay. Councilor Barajas?
I echo that. I kind of support what was just kind of explained.
Okay.
Well, I don't believe in government owning housing, but I think it'd be better off if the city didn't own it.
So I guess I go with what they said.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer to pass it off to the Housing Authority.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Staff.
Okay. And same, so we have a majority there. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. And then it looks like we have a majority for everything else. The major items of discussion was obviously that one, but then also the CPR. And so I think we want to take that back around as well. But we had some questions about what that could look like, and we heard some different options about what that could look like. So do you want to give some more information about what we could do instead?
Sure. So in listening to the conversation by council, what staff is hearing is allowing the applicant the option, but not the right. And what I heard was allowing them, if they choose to have an option, having a fee for that option was also something that I heard. And it would be at the discretion of the council and the city manager to decide if there was time within the agenda cycle for that to be, and if this body would even, care to hear about a proposed project. So it's optional for the applicant. If they do choose, then it's at your discretion whether or not you actually want to hear that, and then there would be a fee for that.
Thank you for summarizing. Question, Councilor Johnson.
Just to clarify, and also to remove the notice requirements.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor.
All right, let's do a quick poll and make sure we're in alignment there. Councilor Zadi?
Yes.
I would just rather discontinue the whole thing.
Councilor Barajas?
I'm in favor of the amended option, our discretion, and rid of the notice.
Let me understand. So the people near a project don't get any notice, any part of the, do they get a notice at all?
Councilor Johnson, yeah.
So the way they would get notices when they actually go to the rest of the process, when they actually decide to build.
When they go to the planning commission?
Yeah, but just not when if they decided to come to council and do the concept plan review, because they can't speak anyway, we don't need to spend the money to send everyone out notices when concept plan reviews most likely doesn't go forward anyways, and it costs a bunch of money everyone gets all worked up, and then we don't know what happens.
I'm fine with his amendment. I think they should be able to come to us, to show it to us if they'd like.
Thank you.
Obviously, I'm fine with my suggestion.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, any further thoughts?
Since I have the same thought, I like having the option.
Perfect. Okay, I think you hear majority in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about inclusionary housing? Because that was a mixed, I didn't hear a clear.
Did anyone say yes to it?
I did not hear a single yes.
Okay.
So I think we're.
Understand it more, so.
That's right. So I think that one was a clear no.
Okay.
Could we pull on tabling it to continue the discussion? Because I do think
I did hear a request for that. Okay. Are we okay to come back if folks do their homework on that? Okay. So let everybody do some more homework and come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that all clear as mud? Are we good? Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
As always, appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, while they're packing up, can I ask just the city manager on this, if I could just special request that the comms team include this in the tote bag of action that they're creating. I'll probably put in and council, all of council's kind of welcome to join in on that endeavor, but highlighting really crystallized, really nice, shareable, easy things, and this is one thing I would like to include in that. Maybe that's direction for Director Kimball, but
get that in the go bag.
Okay. I can explain what that is more if you don't.
No, we can. Councilor, we'll take it from here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to call John up.
Okay, I believe that leads us to our next presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Before we begin, I know it's 9:15, so I've got some icebreakers that are sparkling, have a little pizzazz. If anyone would like them, and you can want them, I can pass them around. All right, with that, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Erin Farrada, Policy and Budget Manager, and tonight, Chris Lindsay, Assistant City Manager, and I will be sharing the city's best budget development practices, as well as asking for guidance on City Council and community input during the 2027 budget development process. If you wouldn't mind, as we go through each slide, please take any notes or any questions that you may have, and then at the end, we will come back and we'll go through those questions together. The city's budget is more than a collection of numbers. The budget functions as a comprehensive guide, shaping priorities, directing resources, and connecting long-term vision to day-to-day operations. As a result, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to budgeting. However, there are established best practices. To ensure best practices and high standard of quality, the city aligns its budgeting approach with principles and guidelines established by the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA. GFOA advances excellence in public finance and represents professionals across the United States and Canada, with more than 30,000 members at the federal, state, and local levels. GFOA promotes the highest standards in local government financial management. The city's budget has earned the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the past 5 years. This award honors state and local governments that produce budget documents of exceptional quality, meeting rigorous criteria established by the National Advisory Council of State and Local Budgeting and GFOA best practices. To receive this distinction, a budget must demonstrate excellence as a policy guide, financial plan, operational framework, and a communication tool. We are also proud to share that the city has received the GFOA Triple Crown Award twice and is in the process of submitting again for another time. The Triple Crown recognizes governments who have received GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, the ACFR, Popular Annual Financial Reporting Award, the PAFR, and the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. This past time, the City of Westminster was one of 17 in the state of Colorado that received this award. The city is committed to achieving a sustainable, balanced budget by aligning priorities with available resources through adaptive and inclusive planning. The goal depends on collaboration, transparency, and open communication to foster meaningful engagement and shared commitment throughout the development and implementation process. Building on GFOA guidelines and the city's budget framework, we implement a budget development approach that aligns with the needs of the city. I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Lindsay to take us through our approach.
Thank you, Erin. Good evening, Council. I'm going to spare you from some of what I've talked about in previous presentations where we hit on the different types of budget development approaches. Think of styles like zero-based budgeting and budgeting for outcomes. And I shared that presentation with our newest counselors when we did onboarding. I want to highlight that the city uses a hybrid budget development process that combines the best aspects of line item budgeting and priority-based budgeting. And we do this, like Erin talked about towards the beginning of the presentation, to help you and the staff assign those limited resources that were entrusted by the residents to those public values that we identify in the strategic plan and through our planning processes throughout the year. The way we do budget development is something that we review and refine annually, and we've worked annually with City Council to adjust our approach to meet the demands of both yourselves and the community. Line item budgeting is a very common budgeting tool, and it's what we use to do operational budgeting here at the City of Westminster. Slightly dated number in the bottom right, but over 80% of GFOA members that were surveyed described using budget as a line item, and almost half described their budget as incremental. The city's budget includes budgets and more than 30,000 individual line items. So it's, while it's a line item and it's seen as simple, at the scale we do it, it's a fairly complex process. Line item budgeting is seen as simple because it's done incrementally, which makes it easier to understand and easier to calculate. It provides accountability and control across individual line items that allows control at both a programmatic level, division, department, and certainly for our city manager and our leadership. It provides predictability using historical precedent to look at how we've been spending money and help drive decisions forward. And then lastly, it's flexible to accommodating changing political priorities. It's easier to shift as needed, and there's more flexibility to declare new policies through the budget process. The city utilizes something more akin to priority-based budgeting for our capital plan. I highlight a now well-dated magazine cover from the City Managers Association back in 2008, and that's the Jefferson County Court and Administration Building there on the right, where we started priority-based budgeting and prioritization a few years ago. Through priority-based budgeting, we can connect capital projects, especially directly to strategic plan items, and look at a number of different factors. We've worked really closely with the city engineer's office the last couple of years with the scoring matrix that highlights many of these factors to tie capital projects and rank them according to how they fit within these and how they connect to the strategic plan to help make funding recommendations that you then see in the budget document. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Erin.
So we've discussed the city's approach. Now we can dive a little bit deeper into the framework. These are the things that I dream about.
Yay.
It's sad, but true. At the core, the budget is a plan that aligns revenues and expenditures with people, priorities, and projects. The process requires time, collaboration, understanding, and alignment. This framework that you see in front of you combines both high-level perspectives as well as detailed steps. You'll notice some of the dates are more specific, others are general, and I look forward to walking it through with you. So starting in February, we kick off today, budget best practices. Also, as City Manager Andrews indicated in his report earlier, we'll start with department executive level summary presentations with the Chief of Staff who will go first. And then from now until April, or yes, end of March, we'll have a presentation or two every meeting to share those priorities and how each department supports the strategic plan. That will evolve after our strategic plan workshop this Saturday. We will also begin utility affordability listening sessions, which will inform the budget and other processes as we go along. Looking to March, we'll continue those listening sessions and those department presentations. In April, if needed, those engagement listening sessions will continue. On April 6th, at a study session, we'll review budget priorities based upon feedback on the presentations that have been shared with you, as well as discuss the cost of service study. This is a key point where we're looking for City Council feedback, direction to make sure we're tracking themes that we've heard to touch base so that we're on the same page. Also in April, we're looking to schedule a budget town hall. We'll talk about that more in the next slide of potential dates that would work with City Council. Typically at that budget town hall, we open up our online community process to receive feedback. That isn't our only way we receive feedback, but that's one of the main ways that we do. Going on until May, we will be talking a little bit more about this in the next slide, as well as that we would like to explore another Saturday budget workshop. This again will build upon the conversations and the feedback that we received from the April 6th presentation, the budget town hall, the listening sessions, the department presentations, to make sure that we are on the same page in tracking the needs and the themes and priorities of the strategic plan and the city council. Also in May, if we would start the community online process in April at the town hall, we would close it a month later. In June, we're currently scheduled for the June 1st study session to follow up what we heard in April, to then in May that we built upon for our, if so choosing, city council, our budget workshop. If there's any questions or concerns, additional follow-ups, we'll talk through those at that June study session to make sure we're on the same page. Did you have questions about the cost of service study? Did you have questions about our revenues, how we're tracking and aligning with the strategic plan? To make sure we're on the same page. Again, another key opportunity for City Council to provide input and feedback so that we're collaborating on the development of the 2027 budget. From there, we transition to July, which seems so far away, but oh my, it will be here before we know it. We'll begin budget development based upon the feedback that we received from you in the months prior. Also, we are targeting, and we'll discuss it a little bit more in the next slide, of talking through utility rates based upon the conversations that we've had in April, May, and June in regards to the cost of service study, the listening sessions, and other feedback that we've received from City Council. We'll continue our budget development in August, with Monday, August 24th, our banner day of sharing our proposed budget with you to consider. This is where we're going to start to get a bit more specific because these dates kind of flow into our adoption. So from August 24th to September 4th, we ask City Council to review the budget and ask questions. Staff will then take those questions and we will respond to them. We will share them during prior to the September 21st study session, so we can discuss. And again, did we miss the mark? Did we capture what you were looking for in that budget? Or are there just any clarifying questions of how we are responding to this, and implementing the actions of the strategic plan within the budget? However, prior to that, on September 14th, we'll have our first budget hearing. At that study session on September 21st, again, we'll go through the questions. See if we're in the right spot. Anything that we need to address and collaborate on to move forward to ultimately take it to October 12th, which would be our first reading and beginning of the adoption of the 2027 budget. Second reading is October 26th. November and December, it's a long time, but again, it's going to be here before we know it. We begin implementation, and then we circle back. We have a debrief with you, with ELT, with staff. How did we do? What could we do better? What have we learned? Where do we miss the mark? So some of the things that we talked through during that framework, we wanted just to get some more specific direction to make sure, again, we are hearing you, we're collaborating, and we're on the same page. So as we've already mentioned, the department engagement begins tonight and will continue through March. Each department will share an executive summary. Is council comfortable with moving forward with that?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, and I'm just underlining my hope to also hear from staff what they're hoping to get done or they feel like needs to get done, as well as what we think we need to get done.
And hopefully with the Chief of Staff's presentation this evening, you'll start to see that format, and since it's the first, bit of a canary in a coal mine. We can adjust as we go along, and also we'll learn more. One of the slides that you'll see is specifically aligned with the strategic plan is based upon the conversations that we have this Saturday that will continue to evolve. Also, as we mentioned, we'd like to begin the utility affordability engagement listening sessions to inform the budget as well as other conversations. Our first one is scheduled for this Thursday evening. Is council comfortable with that?
May I add,
Yes.
Aaron, sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
Part of this is also standing up the water affordability task force, which would start pretty much immediately and run in parallel to the open public sessions, which are characterized as utilities. So there's actually two pieces to the utility affordability.
That was my, thanks for, I was like, where is it?
Yeah.
So that's, okay, that's where it is. Got it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Counselor Hott?
Yeah, this looks a lot like last year, and last year was perfect. So if we do exactly what we did last year, you guys are gonna nail it.
That's our goal, and if we miss the mark, we look for your feedback. Let us know. My only rule is no all caps.
No, all caps.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I did notice I can't make many of the utility affordability listening sessions. Are they going to be?
So there's only currently 3 that are scheduled.
Yeah.
And so based upon feedback that we receive and we schedule the others, we can have comms coordinate to make sure that there's some dates that work for you.
I would also share, I don't think there's an expectation that council attends each or all of those. And the communication staff is going to keep notes on the feedback that's received and provide an overview of that at the end of the process.
And part of that process will be, we will have a very senior subject matter expert at the table there, and it's intended to be a two-way. So hopefully it's 2 things. It's an opportunity to engage and give us input. It's also an opportunity for residents to engage with our subject matter experts and get information back. And that will all build and raise the tide of awareness and discussion around water affordability in the community. And they're probably more similar to Councilor Baraja's pop-up concept at the rec center. So people will see a table, feel welcome to come over, engage with staff. We'll record all of that interaction. I don't mean like audio record it. We will take notes on all those interactions and bring that information back to the task force and to city council at the same time. So hopefully it's just a rising tide of awareness and input. And then we can watch for themes, we can watch for outliers of awareness and misinformation. Sometimes that's less of a factor now, but it was in the past. And so we'll track for all of that and bring that into the process.
So the task force timing and everything, are you going to add that in the timeline, that big one?
Yes.
Because that's bi-weekly, that's going to be bi-weekly?
We can add, yes. Parts and pieces of this conversation have been moving. So prior, that wasn't included in this presentation because it hadn't been decided upon. So yes, we can incorporate it into this image of how it will work so that we can see how it ties directly into and collaborates with the budget process. So absolutely.
So when do we get to, I guess, form it, the appointment process, when does that start? Is that March? Is that what it said?
Thank you, Councilor, that's a great question. What I think we can do to move swiftly is I can bring in the draft terms of reference for that water affordability task force on Saturday, and you all can look at that, and the mayor perhaps could help take a poll if we launch, and then we'll get right into the timeline. There is a time, we've drafted a timeline. It is doable. It does match this, and in that timeline is council selecting the members for the task force. But that can happen pretty quickly. We're pretty good at setting that up for you. You could do it all, not necessarily even in a meeting. We could give you the candidates' names and material. We could structure it to happen pretty swiftly.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
So, sorry, is there going to be like a general question? I know you're asking for feedback on each of these. Is there like is slide 9, like just general questions? Okay, great. So,
at the end, yeah.
So question number 3 is a budget town hall. We would like to see if city council would be open to either April 22nd or April 29th. They're both Wednesdays at the MAC to have a budget town hall.
What time are you looking?
We're looking at 6 to 8 is currently what we're thinking, so it would be after hours.
Wednesdays are perfect for me.
Can you say, you said the 20?
The 22nd or the 29th?
I have SPLB on the 29th, so it's not a hard stop, but I do like those meetings, so if we can do the 22nd, I'd prefer that.
We also have Front Range.
Yeah.
On the 29th?
Which I think Mr. Chauvin said may or may not move, but.
I also cannot do the 29th.
So
April.
Does the 22nd work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, the 22nd.
My calendar with me and budget.
And we'll continue, I'm sorry.
After, at 6.
Yes, once we wanted to, bless you.
Excuse me.
We wanted to confirm the date, and then we'll work with comms to set up. Right now, it's currently, we're planning on having it at the MAC, and we'll get some additional details and make sure it's on your calendar. And then we'll coordinate to make sure we're on the same page in regards to the topic of the budget town hall. The next one is the budget workshop. Last year, the Saturday workshop was really successful of having different sessions and making sure we had some time to focus on the budget. What we would like to propose is either May 2nd or May 9th. So it's the first 2 Saturdays in May. So it's early, it's not graduation.
I can't do May 2nd, it's my piano recital, but I can do the 9th.
Okay. Just a moment.
That works for me too. You can invite us to your recital.
You can come to my recital if you'd like.
Okay.
May 9th works for me.
Okay.
Is there anyone that does not work for? I see a lot of yeses. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so May 9th will work.
I saw one, sorry.
No, I think I can do it. I'm freaking out because I do have a kid graduating, and so I'm like,
That's why we wanted,
moment in May is.
we wanted to try and move it early so that we would be respectful of that, and we'll also make sure the time is similar to the strategic plan, most likely, I guess, either 9 to 3, something along those lines, so that it's a condensed day, but we'll structure it to make sure that we have your feedback, and we're talking cost of service study, our revenue projections, where we are with the strategic plan, things along that line. And as I mentioned, we kind of have a domino effect. We want to build on each conversation we have and have those conversations not be independent of one another. So as we have our department engagement February through March, we have our strategic plan workshop, or City Council has a strategic plan workshop this weekend. We then, on April 6th, will come back, see where we are, what are initial themes that are rising to the top. We then talk through those. We'll build the May budget workshop based upon those, also expanding with our revenue projections, cost of service study, and then based upon feedback that we received from the May budget workshop, at that June 1st, this is a study session, a regular study session, not outside of regular meetings. Another touch point of what we've heard, where we're going. Is everyone comfortable with that approach?
Question on the studies, the July study session. I assume it's going to be streamlined. So you have the task force will have dates and so forth and goals. Is the task force ending in July? Is that because it needs to make sense to have the study session and then we don't want to duplicate and confuse.
Thank you, Councilor, for the question. It's far enough out that we will work now to synchronize those two processes so that they converge at the right point. So the task force, for example, may wrap up and report out before this session, and and their material comes into you as an input. Or it may be parallel, come in at the same time. So we'll take a deeper dive on that. We're just landing those more outer pieces right now. This is mostly to make sure City Council is comfortable that in July we'll set up a study session on utility rates, and that
And maybe that's the report out, right?
It could very well be.
Maybe the task force is reporting at that study session to council all their findings.
That's what I'm thinking, but we haven't quite landed that part with our policy and budget team. So,
okay.
But that would be the ideal.
And so we are tentatively thinking there's 2 study sessions in July. The first one is right after the 4th of July weekend. And then the one that we're looking at specifically here is July 20th. So to allow some, whether it's the report out at the 6th or in between, so we would have that information. So again, we'll talk cost of service study in April, in May, in June, as well as the listening sessions, the water affordability task force will all be components to this conversation to lead us to discussing the rates at that study session, understanding that this isn't something that we will be putting on the table and asking for discovery at the time, is that we want to have conversations throughout the process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now we'll open it up to any other general questions in regards to our budget best practices or the process that we're looking to implement in collaborating in our development of the 2027 budget.
Any questions? All right, Councilor Barajas.
I do. I'll be quick.
Nope.
So I'm curious about what budgetary adjustments look like mid-year. So if there's like the Dust Fairy Sandman makes Westminster fall asleep and no one spends any money in May, like what happens? Would it be helpful for this to be back and forth, or should I kind of throw all my questions out? What would be the best way to do it?
Whatever you're comfortable with. We can do one at a time, or if you want to put them on the table and then maybe they build upon each other.
Why don't we do one at a time to make sure we hit them?
Great.
Okay.
I think for that question in particular, when we do, so it's kind of simplified on the calendar, the October dates. That October date includes a slew of associated actions, with that including adopting rates and fees, setting property tax mill levies, and another one is adopting a revised budget for 2026. Okay. So any of those actions of change during the year, adoption of grants, receipt of grants, those are a big one. Mm-hmm. We make those and propose those with the adoption of the budget in October.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And that's typically your first action when we bring that along. That will be your first one, because that sets up the amended 26, which then sets up 27.
Great, well, that makes sense. These kind of are linked. Are there any of these bullet points that are unique to this year? So particularly like rate studies, things like that. So I guess one, are any of these bullet points unique to this year, or is this I know Councilor Hott said this looks a lot like what last year was, and I know that is true. Are any of these bullet points unique, so maybe added? And on that note, if there are any that are unique, what's maybe coming up that would be unique next year or the year after, kind of thing?
So currently focusing on the 2027, what is unique are the utility affordability engagement sessions. The cost of service study is not completely called out in here, but the utility rate study session, those are most likely the most unique ones that we're having, as we have a cost of service study how many years? About every 5 years. So we're in the process. It started in 25. So this takes time, and we want to make sure that this is a collaborative conversation with City Council. So those are new items. Okay. And since we typically adopt the rates as part of our budget, because the rates then set and match the revenues that will be received for the utility to operate, as part of the budget process. So we wanted to make those go hand in hand so they weren't independent of one another.
And I would, please. And I would add, so the Water Affordability Task Force is also, it's linked closely to the cost of service study also being unique this year, and our water. It's a very good combination to get input and at the same time information and data, and those will converge for City Council. So that's new and different this year, and it's not every year that we would do that, or that we do certainly the cost of service study.
Okay, that's kind of satisfies those. And just one last note. In our Adams County Regional Summit, I think that might have been where the four of us were there, they asked us for budget framework dates. I just wanted to tell you that. I don't know if they're gonna, I don't know what the purpose of it necessarily was, but they were curious around what every municipality's budget framework was, particularly, I think, in light of maybe some budget constraints that they were expressing and have communicated with us. We communicated as best we could this process. I just wanted you all to know as well that they asked that, and that in case they come out to you and say, hey, it's October and we know this. That's where it kind of came from.
And so please feel free to share this with them, and then also whether it's Adams County or other community members or associations, when we have our community online request process, there's an opportunity to submit requests there. Okay. One thing that isn't captured here that we started in the 2026 budget, in 2025, we had our, 2025, we had our first budget town hall, is that right? All these years blur. But we started with an online, our first online community request process. And as an attempt for transparency and accountability as part of our 2026 budget, you will notice that there are follow-ups from everything we said we were going to do or accomplish based upon the 2025 community requests. So that's something that isn't captured here, but is built into that process, is that we want to add that. So when you look at the 2027 budget, you'll not only see the 2027 community asks and a response for each one from staff of how it's been incorporated, how potentially there's a process to get there, but then you also see a section after that, which will be 2026 status updates. So that we're circling back to the community and saying, we said we were gonna paint this water tank, this is what happened, or we are delayed because the funding from the grant was delayed, and so that there's that accountability circle. So that's something that we've built in. And just going back to your question about what is new and what's the same, the dates from August until November, for the most part, are pretty standard. It's how we set up to get to that point that is fluxing and reacting based upon the feedback that we receive from City Council, especially during that budget debrief. What we heard last year is that the process went well. So we wanted to build off that success rather than mixing everything up and starting from scratch. So we're just responding to it, and then we'll have that same conversation in November, December of next year, and we'll continue to evolve. We don't want this process to be stagnant and stale. It needs to evolve just like our budget evolves.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. We really look forward to working with you during the budget development process.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
We hope you have no more nightmares.
They're not nightmares. Like, there's things that, like, you wake up and you're excited to be part of this.
Thank you.
I mean, that's sad, but it's reality.
Dream about sewing shoes when
I still have teacher stress.
And I'll remind former Councilor DeMott's favorite line, we control what time we go home. So. All right, next presentation. Welcome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Councilors. I'm going to do the first of the department budget priority presentations and hope to meet those expectations this evening. Again, our purpose is to talk about our progress, the factors that influence progress, and how we support the implementation of the strategic plan. Again, my name is Chris Lindsay. I'm the Assistant City Manager, and I serve as the City Manager's Chief of Staff, and this is the Chief of Staff's office. You're going to notice this year that these presentations are briefer. We've done these a couple of times. We've done onboarding recently, so you're not going to have as many slides from each of our departments as we go through. But I do want to highlight the divisions that are within the Chief of Staff's office. Our office coordinates and oversees cross-departmental and internal service initiatives and activities across our organization. I'm going to start with administration and JEDI, so that's the support staff within my office, and then Armando Martin, who is the administrator of our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion program. Jen Pren leads our City Hall Operations Division, which includes environmental compliance, facility security, community assistance, passport acceptance, print shop, and messenger. Our City Clerk's office is led by Abby Fitch, who provides City Council support, meeting support, business licensing, records management, boards and commissions, and elections management. Our municipal court is led by Brian Pogenglass in cooperation with the judge and the chief prosecutor's office. They do court operations, probation, and wellness court. And last but not least, our policy and budget division includes financial planning, legislative advocacy, and financial transparency. We do all of this with 43.6 full-time equivalents and a budget of just short of $10 million. Our 2026 priorities are quite varied. We've talked a bit already about the cost of service study this evening, so I'm not going to hit that in any more detail. This evening, City Council took action to approve a contract that allows us to modernize security infrastructure across our city facilities, specifically our badge access software and hardware. This supports and protects critical infrastructure across the city. And we've been operating on an older, rather old system that has very few customers on it. And so this year is going to be a large year to make some major updates to a core service that protects a lot of our infrastructure. Across several of our divisions, we're looking at how our staff support both City Council and how we serve the community. Certainly within the City Clerk's office and in the City Manager's office, how we support City Council. We're also looking at how we do our community assistant program at the front desk. Council's aware of the AI tool that we've been using and beta testing to answer the phones at the front desk that have given us some flexibility with staff and certainly operating with fewer staff. We're also continuing to look at how we do business licensing within the City Clerk's office and how we manage across our work group with some transitions in staffing. When I was working with Brian Pogenglass a couple of months ago to set up goals for the year, his primary goal was around preparing to move into a new facility, which it hit me. It's getting a lot more real. In addition to the construction, we're looking at later this year or sometime early next year, moving from one court facility to another, which is taking a significant amount of transition time. Our staff is working to scan and get rid of a lot of those files that you've seen in the ancient filing cabinets that are down at our municipal court that have served us well, but we don't want to be moving those over to the new facility. It also takes a lot of planning to ensure that court dates work out and we can transition, train our staff on new AV equipment and other things. So this is a large year for planning that transition to the facility. And we've been talking a bit tonight about budget. That really ties into how we advance long-term financial planning and ensure fiscal stability. Certainly in a year we're going to talk about utility rates. That's really critical. Be looking at a lot of debt and other financial mechanisms this year that are just going to continue to advance the work we've been doing around long-term financial planning for the city. I want to talk about some of the factors that are influencing progress that this Chief of Staff's office is making. Over the last about 2 years, we've rapidly expanded the contract security guards that we use at many city facilities. We currently have security guards at 5 city facilities, an additional one seasonally, and we're looking at 2 additional facilities to add those to. We're getting to a point where bringing those in-house is going to cost less than continuing to contract those out, and that's going to be a large undertaking of staffing and planning and setting policies for folks who carry guns and protect our facilities. So that's something we're certainly looking at, and those security needs continue to expand as folks like our rec centers deal with difficult patrons, and we have access control and other issues. I want to highlight, we've been working with our finance department as there's some personnel transition to how we strengthen financial management for both the finances of our Westminster Economic Development Authority and all of the GIDs that the city oversees, and we're working hand in hand with those. We'd love for the budget team to take on more of that, but that's something that we are lacking staff to take on all of that for. So we're looking to see how we can do more of that with our finance department. And lastly, the primary points of contact with our federal lobbyist contract have moved on from the firm within the last 6 months, which entirely coincidentally meets up with a timeline which we need to do a procurement for our federal lobbyist contract. So aligning those to make sure we advance priorities, especially as we're thinking about earmarks and infrastructure funding over the coming federal fiscal year, is going to be something that's really critical for our staff in the coming months. So a big RFP right there.
Are we saying our federal lobbyist is changing?
It could be. Could be. Certainly the personnel that are at the firm have changed at Squire Patton Boggs, but we'll be doing requests for proposals in the coming months.
He's one of my favorite guys. That's sad news.
Mike?
He could be, or he has gone.
Mike retired. Mike Dino retired about Thanksgiving last year.
Congratulations, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. He's living the golf dream in retirement. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, but that's going to be a pretty critical procurement for us this year. And we're asking all our department directors to talk about how we contribute to the implementation of the strategic plan. And since I'm going prior to our planning process on Saturday, I took a little different approach. Certainly we connect with a lot of what's in the existing strategic plan, but as an internal service provider, a lot of what we do being internal service providing, I think the guiding principles in the strategic plan connect really closely to the work that we do. I also like to think that we connect many of our departments to help them execute using these values and guiding principles around stewardship and fiscal responsibility, transparency and accountability, certainly diversity, equity, and inclusion, and innovate and initiate. And that last one is one I want to highlight. Jen Pren, our operations manager, leads our continuous improvement team. We also have a contract with an outside process improvement consultant who we've used a lot over the last year. We've been doing a lot of work to help our city staff innovate and build a culture to initiate those on their own, and certainly we can bring in additional help when they need that. And with that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation with a couple other photos of the great work that we do, accepting passports, and over at the Westminster Sustainability, which is managed out of our City Hall Operations Division. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I have one more, not related to this topic, before we go into executive session. One of the things that we've kind of discussed before, but in order to keep the council workload down, I would love to poll my colleagues around having a proposal come to us, or some volley of proposals related to expanding our city manager's authority to approve contracts, so we can reduce the amount of workload that comes to us related to the little contracts here and there that we have to do. City manager, is that something that could be brought forward to us for options?
I'll just intervene real quick. So thank you for bringing that forward. We do have our strategic planning meeting on Saturday. I think that's a good opportunity to bring that. I think we have a few counselors who are talking about bringing that forward, including myself, as well as everything, because we're about to rehash a whole lot. So I think our city manager's already prepared to get that going. That's on his radar for Saturday, as well as everything else. So I think we're well on our way. But just answering for you there.
Oh, thank you. Although it won't be ready for Saturday, if council wishes to pursue this, we'll pull data. And so we'll see what how much staff time and cost has gone into producing agenda memos at different thresholds, because the approvals land on city council on consent agenda, but each memo and all of that work probably takes 10 to 15 hours per memo, and so there would be a savings to the city to change that level, but it would balance out, and we'll also look at our benchmarks around us to give you that perspective. So if council gives us that direction on Saturday, we'll come back probably in a public meeting with some options for you.
Okay, so you want to wait till Saturday to get that direction?
Yes, because then we can all pour it out. Let's just hold on that real quick. Let's move ahead with because we're already getting off track. Appreciate you. Okay, thank you so much. We have reason for executive session this evening. And with that, it is 10:02, and we can close the public session of our meeting.